What is up, everybody? The Corona crew. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Brent Gill. Thanks for tuning in. We have a fantastic show for you tonight. What wine am I drinking tonight? Well, so I've been drinking. So if you haven't tuned into previous episodes, and that's fine. I'm a big fan of Costco wine lately. So I've been buying a bunch of Costco wine, and my favorite right now, I'm telling you, I know it's weird to say Costco wine is delicious, but it really is. And this Cabernet from Costco, it's like $14 and it drinks like a $30 bottle of wine. It's very good. So I've been drinking a lot of like good wine lately, and I wanted something different that I had for a little bit, rotated out a little bit. So I had this at the Comedy Works in Denver, and this is called Purple Paradise by Chronic Cellars. This is up in Paso Robles. I live in California now, and I'm originally from Denver. And so I went up there, but I had that at Comedy Works, and I was like, "Yo, this is delicious." And so it's a decent bottle of wine, not my absolute favorite, but hey, it's pretty darn good. When in quarantine, you drink what you have. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm drinking on. I probably won't bust into the tequila much at all, but thanks for asking. Thanks for joining in. Again, we are here. This is the Brent Gill Show. And this basically I'm doing what's called Comedians in Quarantine, except my guest today isn't a comedian, but he's a huge supporter of comedy. And he's a philanthropist and entrepreneur. And we are going to talk to him about some of his business ventures and moving them into employee-owned businesses. When he ran for mayor of Denver, and the current state of the cannabis industry right now. I personally have had not even my toe in it. I have had my whole lower body in it. I haven't taken the full plunge into the cannabis industry, but I've definitely had my fair experience with it. For those of you who remember me from, which, my God, if you remember me from back then, I feel like I should buy you an Amazon gift card or something. I used to do a thing called Marijuana Radio way back in the day, which is actually how I met my guest tonight, Kayvan Khalatbari. And I'm sorry, it's Calipari. There it is. You have to pronounce it correctly. But I was doing Marijuana Radio probably in 2007, maybe 2006 till probably 2010, something like that. And maybe 2009, something around there. And great show. For lack of a huge, long explanation as to why it didn't work, it didn't work. It should have worked. I had great ideas. Anyway, I'm a little bitter about it. I tried to buy the whole thing when I saw it collapsing, and they didn't want to sell it. And I'm like, I don't even have the money to buy this, and I still want to purchase this. So I have my experience there. I've had my medical marijuana card for several years. I've also been a grower myself. I grew home grow, of course, but grew for about 5 years, and basically stopped when shit got so cheap there was no reason to grow. So I kind of have an interesting outlook on this, and I'm fascinated to hear what Kayvan, now that he's in advocacy and he is in planning, and basically, let me turn this mic off. There we go. Planning and all that stuff. And the legal side of it, and getting states recognized and ready to go for these new law changes. I want to talk to him and see where things are at right now. So that's what's on the docket for today. I hope everybody is staying clean out there, keeping those hands washed. I know I forget to wash my hands probably half the time that I come home from places, but it's weird because I'm like a germ freak when it comes when it comes to almost everything. I like, ew, my hands feel gross. But I'm in my home and my hands feel fine because I'm not touching a bunch of gross shit. And I still feel like I should be washing my hands. And I don't know. My buddy, Chris, if you watched the last episode, he bought a bottle of hand sanitizer, black market, like bootleg hand sanitizer on outside of a liquor store. And it was $5 for a tiny little bottle of hand sanitizer. Dude's making it in his hot tub right now, which is, what have we come to, you know? So, but of course, you know, everyone's killing time. What are you guys, if you guys want to throw some chats in there, I don't know what you're watching right now in terms of television. Everyone needs to pass the time. Well, we're all stuck at home. We already talked about Tiger King on previous episodes. Since then, I've watched the movie Vice with Christian Bale, which is like I don't know if it's the untold story, but the story of our vice president, Dick Cheney. Fucking fascinating story, okay? Dick Cheney, this dude was so calculated throughout this and throughout his life. And okay, sorry, I have so many thoughts going through my head on old Dick Cheney there. First of all, the movie was fantastic. If you haven't seen it yet, it's called Vice, directed and written by Adam McKay, the same dude that did The Big Short, which is also a fantastic movie. And I will say this, it's not necessarily overtly shitting on the vice pres, which I think a lot of people expect it to. I expected it to. The vice pres just shits on himself. You know, what he does will invoke a feeling that whatever it is to you. That's neither here nor there. That's why you should watch the movie. It's fantastic. What I found interesting was at the end of it, and I bet you this is true, and this is definitely part of something that's written, but I'd be curious how much truth in this statement or this little monologue that he gives at the very end about how, you know, Dick Cheney's saying, he's like, I will not apologize for doing what you asked me to do. And I was like, whoa, I guess I didn't think of it that way. And he's so set in his way that he didn't do anything wrong that it makes you think, well, did he not do anything wrong? Like, he is a gangster. He absolutely is a gangster. I mean, it was a great movie, and you know, it just makes you think that he did what he thought was best. I don't think going to war was an easy choice, and he was clearly the one running the fucking country when GW was in office. But he is a gangster, man, and yeah, boy, that could be a whole nother episode on Dick Cheney there to see how to interpret what he did, but I don't think we have that much time. But what I will say is it's a good movie. It made you think. It made you question your current beliefs. And you know what? That's what a good movie should do. So, couldn't recommend that more. Watch that. I watched War Dogs. That was a great movie. I wouldn't say it was great. It was good. It was good enough to be happy that I watched and not watch again, for sure. That was the one with the fat dude from Who Am I to Talk? That was with Jonah Hill. So, good movie for sure about the true story about gun runners. I should have watched them in opposite order. I should have watched Vice first and then watched War Dogs, because then some things would have made sense. But good movie nonetheless. If you had to choose either one of them, no question, I definitely recommend watching Vice with Christian Bale. Steve Carell's Donald Rumsfeld in it. It's hilarious. Tyler Perry is Colin Powell. Yeah, it's a good movie for sure. Well, here's the thing. I'm looking at my schedule here, and I know that the next thing to talk about is I said on the last episode I'd talk about my X5 and how my X5 is a cartel car, or it's a previously owned by the Mexican cartel car. And so I haven't told the story yet, but I just know how long our conversation is going to be tonight because I have 3 big things I want to talk about with our guest. And so I kind of want to get into it. But of course, it wouldn't be the Brent Gill Show unless I showed a clip of my comedy because come on, this is shameless self-promotion here. What do you think we're doing this for? But if you want to follow me on a daily basis, right up here, there it is. Right up there is my Instagram handle at I am Brent Gill. Also, big thanks to our sponsors, Big Top Studios, Terrapin Care Station, Pearl Street Dental, Tommy Knocker Brewing, and Pilsner Urquell. Thanks for supporting what we do. I have a stand-up clip from this is this the White Claw joke? Oh, gosh, I can't remember what joke this is now. Oh no, yeah, this is a true story. This is the first rendition, maybe like the third rendition or the third telling of this story. This is a true story. I fly a ton, and I fly predominantly Southwest, which you're going to hear about. And I had quite the experience on Southwest Airlines recently, or not too recently, but recently enough to this joke. And so this is recorded at the Comedy Works downtown in Denver, Colorado on 15th and Larimer. My heart goes out to our fucking staff there. They're just like us. We're in a pickle here. We have no income coming right now. So all of us artists are kind of screwed right now. But watch Grandma's Boy. Can't believe I still. Oh my God, Grandma's Boy. For sure, Grandma's Boy is a fantastic sleeper movie. Definitely one of those ones that, like, you know, it felt like they knew that they were doing a straight to DVD kind of a cult classic movie. You know what I mean? Because that movie is way too funny to not be to not have done well. And you know, apparently Anchorman didn't do that well either when they first released Anchorman. So it seems like they definitely want him to be. I said from your dab story. Oh man, thanks dude. I appreciate it. Hell yeah, buddy. 303 for life. That's right. Comedy Works, best goddamn club in the country. If you're not reading our chat here, I have this weed video, this dab story about how dabs are dabs are ridiculous. Maybe I'll play that next time. I have to locate that file right now, but that would be a fun one to tell. But until then, enjoy this story right here about a horrifying trip on a Southwest flight. We'll see you guys in just a second.
So this is something that happened to me a couple weeks ago, and it's still just stuck in my head because I don't feel like I was in the wrong in this situation here. Okay, so I'm A-list on Southwest, which means that I get to board before almost everybody, right? Because I'm rich. And so I get on the plane, and like Southwest is like choose your own seat. If you don't know how it works, you don't have assigned seats. You choose wherever you want. So I board first, and I sit down, and it's just a very front row, window seat. Perfect, right? Pretty good spot. Then, a couple guys later, another fat guy sits right in the aisle. I mean, this is as ideal of a situation as anyone could ever ask for on an early morning flight. Two fat guys in the front row, separated by a middle seat. This is... because no one, like everyone coming on that plane after this is gonna see that seat and be like, there's probably something else. You can be the last one on the plane, C60, and you'll see that like I don't know, there might be some like overhead space in the back. So I'm thinking this is gonna be great. I'm man spreading, I'm stretching out, you know, I'm really digging it. And then B boarding group. This is like the next one. There's still 100 more people to go. This fat dude rolls onto the plane. Figuratively, not literally. And he walks on the plane and he sees the seat. And he goes, oh, cool, is that seat taken? And I look at the seat, and then I look at him, and I'm like, I mean. And he goes, nah, we'll be cool. And he turns around, and he has to sit down like this, as if he's pushing us out of the way on his way down. At this point, I'm furious, because he just broke the rule. He broke there's an unspoken rule amongst fat people that we all know. That when you, I know we're in Colorado, and you're all healthy, you all hike, you bike, you name your kids wind chime and shit like that, I get it. So you don't know this. These fat people know this. That when you have a choice, the freedom of choice, you don't sit in between two other fat guys. You waddle your ass back and go sit in between two other thinners and inconvenience them, okay? Yeah, that's right, I said thinners. That's right. And if you don't like it, you're a biggest, all right? So, I'm not getting up. I'm A-list. I'm not going to let this guy, B boarding group, have a 2-seat front row. Absolutely not. So, like, fine, whatever. So I'm sleeping, and we're, like, over, like, some boring state, like Utah, or some state that will arrest you twice for weed. And I get woken up when I realize that my arm is getting wet. This guy is sweating through his shirt onto my bare skin. And at this point, he broke the rule. There's no courtesy between us at this point. There's no humanity. It is a free-for-all at this point. So I say to him, without even, no remorse. I go, hey dude, do you have like another jacket or a shirt you can put on? Because I'm getting a little moist over here. And he goes, I'm sorry, man, I don't. And he spends the rest of the flight sitting like this. Shut up! No! No! Do not feel bad for him. He broke the rule. Don't forget that. He broke the rule. So we land, all right? We're the first ones off the plane, all right? He's off before me, obviously. We get into the actual airport. We're off the plane, so it's not a federal crime, now it's a local issue, all right? And this guy is like, stops, turns around, locks eyes with me, goes, hey man, fuck you. And I'm like, bro, you broke the rule. What do you mean, fuck me? Fuck you, what are you talking? You don't get to sit between two other fat guys. And he goes, I'm sorry, I didn't think you were that fat. And I was like, well, thank you. No, you don't get to turn this back around on me. You made the mistake. And we're bickering back and forth, right? For like maybe realistically 10, 15 seconds, right? Then, because we were getting out of breath. So then, out of nowhere, right? We're bickering. Out of nowhere, fat guy from the aisle comes from behind and just goes, nah, dude, fuck you. You broke the rule. And just rolls out. And I'm like, thank you, fat guy from the aisle. And I won the argument that day.
We're back. Sorry about that, everybody. Welcome back. That was our clip. I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm a one-man band, okay? These are issues that are going to happen. I just got my W-9 wet, so now I get to print off another one of these. That's awesome. Glad I could do that. That was, of course, recorded down at the Comedy Works downtown. Once everything cleans up, if you're in Colorado, that is one of the best clubs in the gosh darn country. Make sure you go check them out for all those upcoming great shows. And, of course, you can see me there headlining probably about once a month when this gets back. Once every other month once this gets back. So, without further ado, I think it's time to get this queued up. Sidebar right. Let's turn it on. I'm so happy for our guest tonight. He is an entrepreneur. Well, you know what? I'm going to let him tell us what he is. If you would, everybody, please welcome Kayvan Khalatbari. Khalatbari. What's up, my man? How are you?
I'm doing great, Brent. How are you?
You know, so far I'm doing pretty darn good. I have no major complaints, and things are great.
Yeah, I felt a little guilty, I guess, saying that dealing with this whole COVID situation pretty well. I work from home. I love my solitude. People bother me a lot, so it's been really nice to have the government tell people to stay away from me.
People bother you all the time. I feel like that is what your job is.
Yeah, I'm a resource and complaint manager, I think. Is kind of how I live my life. Yeah, I get a lot of inquiries, and it's a lot easier to ignore them when they're purely digital.
Oh, that's my favorite way to ignore people. I'm the king of ignoring people digitally. It's not good. Not good for the old business, that's for sure.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah,
sometimes.
you gotta take care of yourself. You gotta keep time for yourself. That self-care is important, Brent.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Kayvan. You're really not wrong. What do you do to self-care for yourself?
I started cooking a lot.
Did
I think
you?
that's the major thing. Just cooking at home is such a better way to eat. Definitely takes more time, but I've had some of that lately. But I've been cooking a storm and baking a storm. I think baking is something that I never thought I would really get into and have the patience for. And I'm doing pies and I made a loaf of sourdough bread yesterday.
Really?
And focaccia bread, and I'm making homemade lasagna noodles and homemade fettuccine. We're doing some homemade carbonara this weekend. I got a knack for baking. I think I got it from my mom. But that's one thing. There's something very meditative about cooking and just getting rid of the phone and the TV and playing some music and digging into a nice recipe.
The problem is none of the recipes are designed for one human being, and then
or one geography.
True, but also the cleanup. Like when you got to make all this shit, you got shit everywhere.
Yeah, there's a certain skill set involved with one, keeping clean while doing all of this, and two, getting it done afterwards. I got to tell you, I've never had a dishwasher in my adult life in a house that I've lived in.
Really?
And I like doing dishes. I know that sounds weird, but I do. I'm a very domestic person. When I was younger, I used to tell folks, ladies primarily, that well-to-do, driven women, that I would be happy to be a stay-at-home dad, and I'm kind of realizing that dream right now.
You want to be a stay-at-home dad?
Aspirations, or maybe at one point it was an aspiration, maybe more meant so to get ladies to like me, but now I'm living it and I actually kind of like it.
Do you ever think that you're going to die alone? Because I think about that all the time.
Yeah, that only occupies.
What a hot way to start this thing.
Most mornings, before most bites of food. Shitting. And then, definitely before I go to bed. But no, even if I did, I would say I'm happy with that. But, I don't want to jinx this. but I've actually been seeing a nice young lady. I've had a coronavirus romance develop. Um,
A Ronamance, if you
a
will.
coronamance. Yes. It's been nice.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah,
Well,
as you know, I co-adopted, I co-parent
yep,
two young girls, 9 and
yep.
12, and I co-parent with an 87-year-old woman.
That's
And
not
because
normal.
of I'm married to an 87-year-old woman, Brent. Um, but because of her susceptibility to coronavirus, I can't be swapping the kids back and forth like we were before that.
Yep.
So it's me doing their grocery shopping, running errands, going over there and taking the dog for a walk with the girls, working in the garden with the girls at our distance. But other than that, I kind of have to stay away. So I've got even more time on my hands. And I thought, why not spend it with a beautiful Latina?
Oh, I love Latinas.
Yeah.
Boy, man, this conversation could get inappropriate quick. Well,
Uh,
that's neat. We'll just leave it there. Good for you. I like Latinas. I can be polite on some of my episodes for sure. Not all of them, but with a mayoral candidate at one point, I feel like I probably should.
I
Now,
don't anticipate going back there. So let's, uh, whatever you want to bring up, open book in front of you, boy.
how did you meet this person? Like, did you meet them pre-Rona or post-Rona?
Yeah, the first time ever in my life, I actually met her over Instagram, and
I've had a few of those.
she had friended me. I guess, looking back after we had met, I went back and searched my emails and found out that she had actually reached out like 3 times over the last 6 years, and I
And you
had
ignored
been
every one of them.
I was a busy guy. Um, she works in the media industry,
Okay.
and so I was asking for interviews about such. But nonetheless, we had followed each other for a few months, and eventually, I had asked her. She had posted something about Cuban food. I talked about my recent trip to Cuba. I had. We were talking about food, and I asked her if she has ever had Persian food before. That wasn't, innuendo for, Persian
You want
me.
some of this Persian food?
I was actually curious about her. Have you had saffron rice and crash John and some mastikiyar and all that jazz? And she hadn't. So I asked her if she wanted to go try this Persian restaurant down south that I've been wanting to try. And she said yes. And then my back
Nice.
went out and we couldn't go on that date. I think she thought I was joking because my back went out for like 2 weeks. This is the worst it's ever been. It goes out once a year, but not like this.
Yeah,
It
and you
still
sleep on your
hurts.
floor when you have a great bed at your house.
I do, yeah, and I'll sleep on the floor sometimes. I'll do all sorts of things to try to get out of these herniated discs, whatever's boiling down in my backside there, and uh, and nonetheless, we decided to reschedule, and then this whole coronavirus thing
Corona.
happened, and we couldn't go out to eat, obviously. So we went out, actually had a drink together, like during the last hour the bars were open before we couldn't go to places anymore here in Denver. Had a drink. It was love at first sight, and we've been making homemade noodles ever since.
Whoa! Well, I just put your Instagram handle on the screen, so ladies, he's taken.
Yeah, but I'm
Well,
still
that's
trying to
good.
talk her into polyamory too. So,
Yeah,
keep.
no, that's the hard part. It seems to work. It's worked for my cousin. It's never worked for me. I've been trying to do that for, you know, 34 years. Actually, as long as I've been interested in women, it's never worked out. But
It's a nice thought, Brent, but one, expectations have to be there at the start of a relationship,
yeah,
and two, you just
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have.
Hard to broach that subject halfway through a relationship. Like,
Yeah, 8 years
hey,
in. By the way, I but also there's no expectations for how those relationships are supposed to operate, right? Whenever we see a movie, it's about this monogamous couple, and those are the life lessons we got from our parents and our grandparents and whatever, our friends. Not many people are open about their polyamory. So we don't have a lot of examples to know about what's right, what's wrong, what's normal, what's not.
yeah.
And it's going to take some time for that to get built into society. I'd like to help, people understand that.
You're a philanthropist. You just like giving back to society.
Trying to help as many people as I can.
Well, Kayvan, there's a lot of names we've thrown around that you are, a lot of titles you have. What would you say you do here?
Um,
Not to sound like Office Space. What would you say you do here?
uh,
Yeah,
um,
so if someone so you're on an airplane, right? You sit next to me and you're in a talkative mood, which and I am too, which is never the case because both of us fly and we both know when we're on airplanes it's lips shut, shut up, we're sleeping. Now, you meet some lady or some human that you want to talk to and they say, "Oh, what do you do?" Now, I know I have my response cuz I don't like saying I'm a comedian, right? But like on the right situation, I will tell them what I do. I'm a comedian and comedy show producer, and that's I'll say that. So when someone asks you that you want to share what you actually do, what would you say you do?
I'm a father.
You start there.
Yeah, I, is yeah, yeah. I think I've tried to make it more of my life. Obviously, it is a big part of my life, and I like to lead with that. I think it's a good thing, And then I get into the social entrepreneur, I think, and I can
Oh,
talk about that in a million ways. I mentioned I own several businesses in various industries across the country. I sit on a lot of boards and work on a lot of projects socially revolving around homelessness and drug policy reform and a shared economy, which is my most recent thing that I'm really diving into. I think as much as I dove into cannabis, which is looking at how can we build, you know, we can't tear down capitalism and start fresh. That's a wonderful idea, but it's not going to happen. How can we build these parallel structures to make sure that more people are taken care of? And that comes with ownership in the places that they work in, worker cooperatives and employee-owned companies, which we'll get into, and affordable housing. I want everybody to have a house that they can call their own and to own it. And a lot of the projects I work on work towards those things.
yeah. And so when you get to the end of that title there, how bored is everybody
That's on
who?
the business card.
Someone, you just reading the business card like Jesus Christ. I'm so confused. Bored's
It's
the wrong
it's
word.
a
Confused is
it's
what
a
it is.
three-sided business card. Uh,
It unfolds. Just.
it's a pamphlet. Let's be real.
uh,
No, I would say I'm a social entrepreneur, and I like to think that business can be a force of good, be civically engaged, and do well by people.
yeah.
So, in
And you
general,
and you really believe and push it, and this is what I find so interesting about you is you really do believe and push in the good of the people and the great and like the greater good of everyone and working together and instead of one person kind of owns everything it seems like.
in my experience, I've lived on both sides of the fence, right? I co-founded a company, Cresco Labs, that's now a publicly traded company, and I've seen the extractive nature of that process. Doesn't matter how well intending you are, when you have that many investors that are purely there, driven by their financial outcome,
Mm-hmm.
um, that aren't centered in the communities where that business operates,
Mm-hmm.
that don't have a relationship with the people in that company. That's never a good recipe for, in my opinion, a good product and happy employees, and therefore a healthy community. And what I've seen is that the better you treat the people that work for you and with you, the better outcome you're going to have. And I've tried that in a lot of different ways. We've looked at, hey, let's just pay these folks that are employees really well. Let's give them benefits. Let's be flexible with their time off. And then, working in what we're doing now with Sexy Pizza and looking at employee ownership, seeing that dynamic jump even more. And I know that other business owners in Denver are taking the lead on some of this. I think others are looking for people like myself and others to take the lead, that we need to set that example and show that employee ownership works, that free health and dental works, that paid time off no matter how many hours you work works, that 401k matches work, and that we can still be profitable as a company. And I think we're proving that right now at Sexy Pizza with our recent employee ownership conversion.
Yeah.
So I think most people, when they think of it in theory, they're like, man, I'm already struggling in this business. How can I take the little profits I have and divvy it up to employees? One, it hurts me as an owner, and two, my employees aren't going to get that much. Are they going to give a shit? And I think what we're seeing is you're going to have employees that care more, right? That do a better job, that stay around longer, that encourage others that are like-minded and in line with that philosophy to jump on ship as well. And I think patrons, your consumers, your customers appreciate the shit out of it. Most people these days are looking for a business to purchase from that means something, that has values beyond that bottom line. And I think that we can market this as, we've interestingly marketed ourselves as Sexy Pizza in the past as just another way that we're different than a lot of businesses and use that to our advantage. There's definitely doing well with the employees. We're paying them, I don't think an entry-level counter person walks away with less than 17 to 22 bucks an hour. We have
Wow.
GMs that make $80,000 a year, so, and we're still making money. So I think we can set that example and do well by everybody involved in that process.
Wow. What wow. So first of all, I mean, it seems like employee ownership is it basically what you're saying is that you have found that employee ownership is better than paying them better and giving them health care and paid time off is what you're finding. You thought outright ownership and just paying well would do it, but that's not what you found compared to employee ownership. Is that what you're saying?
What I found is even the best employees that love where they're at and love what they do and probably are making enough to be happy, that grass is always greener, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean another job doing what they do in the same industry. We've had a lot of people jump ship and start their own companies, right? And I think that's great. But why are they going to start their own companies? I think they're looking for ownership. They're looking for a piece of the pie. And if we can give that to them and keep them around a little longer, if somebody can stay 4 years instead of 2, 10 years instead of 5, like that makes a huge difference in our organizational consistency and our output and our ability to just run a functioning business.
Right.
So I'm not looking to, have people start with us when they're out of college and retire with us. I would hopefully encourage them to do otherwise before that came to be. But I want people to stay around a little longer, and I think that ownership really matters. And there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. There's worker cooperatives where everybody jumps in at the same time and has a democratic same interest as everybody else, a democratic voting opportunity like everybody else. But there's also what we're doing at Sexy Pizza, which is, if you make more and work more hours, you get more profit sharing than somebody who works 20 hours a week and makes $15 an hour. And it's on the scale where the people that are most invested, that have the biggest stake in our success, are going to see the most at the end of the day in the money side.
Right. So employee ownership for the most part is all profit sharing. It's not like they own part of your publicly traded company. It's that if as the company makes more money, they get they get more money because their percentage is set based off of the time they've been with the company.
And I should clarify, Sexy Pizza is not a publicly traded company.
Of course, okay. But
So
but
there's
that's what that means.
The initial route that we chose for Sexy Pizza was an ESOP, employee stock ownership plan. And in that structure, they actually do have ownership. They hold stock. So each quarter, when we come up with our profits that we're distributing to owners, they have a share of ownership. A shares, these actual physical shares in the company that get transferred into a retirement account for them, and they're held there in perpetuity until they leave, and then they get bought out of those shares. The other option we're looking at Sexy Pizza, because there's some complexities with the stock ownership plan, the other one's just a profit sharing. So we're going to base it off income and hours worked, maybe, and say at the end of the quarter,
this
you're
is your
getting
bonus, basically.
300 or 500 or $1,000 because you're participating in this profit sharing. If you want to put that in a retirement plan, great. If you want to go spend it, you want to go to the strip club, I get your prerogative. But our hope is that we're going to have employees that want to participate in our financial literacy classes that, learn about the books of the business. We're going to open book them and show them our profit and loss statements and how their jobs affect them,
Right.
but also how to save money, how to build for retirement, how to build wealth. We need more of that in our country. And if we can teach, 18 to 25-year-olds that are looking for their place in life, about those skill sets early in life, I think they'll be better off for it.
Interesting. Question out of the chat room. Do you think that employee ownership increases self-actualization and fulfillment?
Yeah, I think it shows people what's possible. I
For
think
like
most
owning their own company, you mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of people grow up thinking that owning a business is impossible for them. And mind you, I started my first business was Sexy Pizza, my first legitimate business.
Right?
Um,
Which we'll get into.
clarification there. With Sexy Pizza 12 years ago, and I had to exhaust every penny I had and borrow a lot of money to start this thing. I'd never made a pizza, I'd never run a business, nor had my partners. And we jumped into it. And it was 9 months later, I was still broke. I was actually living in a tent still
Gotta want to.
at this time
Yes.
that I started Denver Relief with my two partners for $4,000 and half a pound of cannabis. And those were two very fortunate situations, but I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I think there's a level of risk that people have to understand and be able to take. There's a level of like ignorance and like ego, I think, involved that
Sure.
just has to be there. But I got to tell you, every time I didn't know something, I talked to as many people as I could, and I did as much research as I could to learn about that and to try to make the most informed decision possible. I learned more starting those two businesses in the first 2 years than I probably learned my entire life about how to function and deal in this very complicated and rough society.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
I want other people to be able to, understand that, yeah, it's fucking hard and you're going to struggle through it, but it'll be worth it on the other end. And we want to help people take that risk.
Interesting. Follow-up question. Worker management. So not just profit sharing, but do you think that that workers get to but do workers get to make managerial decisions? Okay. Well, I think that's kind of clear. So basically, it sounds like what they're asking is instead of for employee ownership, instead of just profit sharing, do employees also get to make big decisions as well?
So that's where I think if we're going an ESOP route and we have a stock ownership plan, they participate pro rata based on their ownership, right?
Okay.
So there is that voice given. Beyond that, though, I don't think that has to be a part of it. Worker cooperatives do have that, right? I mentioned those earlier. That's where one person, one vote, right? And it's democratically run. If you have 100 members of that co-op, you all own that business equally and you all decide equally what happens. Majority wins. Sometimes it's 2/3 for bigger decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But in what we're doing, yeah, I mean, I mentioned the financial literacy. I want people to see our books, right? I want them to see where we're making and losing money. I want them to understand how their roles affect that. And I want them to come to the table, to our meetings with recommendations on how to improve. We want those suggestions. We have right now monthly manager meetings, which are all GMs that we do that we have in the office. And we have AGMs, assistant general managers, and GMs at the stores. And it's all about sharing ideas and talking about how we can improve as a company. And when we get this employee ownership thing finally structured and have these educational classes completed, we're going to start doing that for all employees that participate. So right now, what we're looking at is, anybody that's working an average of 20 hours a week participates in that ownership or profit sharing, and they're going to have a voice in that company. We want to hear it, and we want to educate them to hopefully make that voice as well-informed and reasonable as possible based on, the situation that we're actually dealing with in the restaurant. Most people make decision, if you're an entry-level counter person, you don't know the books, right? Every person thinks that the owners are, why aren't you driving the Bentley around today? So, it's like we
It's
didn't
because I
make
had to pay you to be here today. That's
we didn't
why.
make profit at Sexy Pizza for 6 years. I wasn't paying myself shit, but people don't know that, right?
Right.
And I think until you pull that curtain back and let them take a look at the books and teach them about how they operate, that it's very hard to have a real idea about how that business functions and what is considered a success or not. in that business.
Hmm. Here's my favorite part about this, Kayvan, is I've known you for a while. I believe I was one of the first few people that you knew when you moved out here. I think.
14, 15 years, started
Yeah.
at old Marijuana Radio on Santa
Right.
Fe, which I
Right.
2 blocks from, Mr. Dick Black. And yeah,
So I hear all this, right? Like I hear what you're saying, and all you are a businessman for sure. And when you moved out here, you bought a house you couldn't afford, or something like that, and then you lived in a tent in the back because you knew it was the right decision. And look at you now; it of course was the right decision. And then you went from living in a tent to opening a pizza shop, not really knowing what you're doing. Then you bought you. Then it is like what brought you out to Colorado? Like, why did you like? What was the goal you had? Was any of this the goal that you had when you moved out of Nebraska?
I should be clear, Brent. First, regarding my businesses, I've never made a business plan. Um,
Yes, yes.
that's an honest statement. Uh, it's very telling about how I've operated in my life. You know, when I lived in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I'm from. Parents got divorced when I was 10. We grew up pretty poor. Um, Mom, single mom, worked 3 jobs to support us and keep us afloat. I started living on my own when I was 16 when she got remarried. And it was like at that point that I said, whatever happens, if I start a family one day, there is no way that I'm going to do it without the money side being taken care of. I know money doesn't make it all right, but I didn't want that to be an issue like it was in my family, where I had a dad who put us in bankruptcy twice because of a gambling addiction. I didn't want
Okay.
that to be another thing to get in the way of that family being a success. So I started hustling. I was selling weed and man, first year of eBay was my first business. And I was selling fake Rolexes and Oakleys and Tag Heuers and Movados
And you
and
were
all,
selling this in Nebraska?
well, I met this gentleman named Kwame Smith in a chat room, an AOL chat room. He lived in Chicago, and somehow I felt comfortable enough sending him like $300 for my initial purchase of 5 full Rolexes. And I would turn them, these are like smooth motion, these were real deal, pretty things. And I would sell them as fake on eBay during their first year until I started getting cease and desist letters from Rolex and Movado and Tag Heuer and all those companies. But that was like my first entrepreneurial vibe outside of drug dealing in high school.
That's
And
basically hey, you want some watches, huh? What do
hey,
you-
but I guess long story short, I
No,
started.
make it long. I'm curious.
I graduated high school when I was 16, and then went to college after a year off. Graduated college when I was 19, and got a job with an engineering firm back in Nebraska. I got my degree in architectural engineering.
Wait,
Went
you
in as a
graduated college at
draftsperson.
19?
Yeah, community college. It doesn't matter. It was
But
not
that was
impressive
still
at all.
but you could do architectural shit at a community
Yeah,
college?
Southeast Community College, Milford in Nebraska. It was a small cow town. They did mostly ag studies, and they had an architectural engineering class. Did civil, mechanical, structural, electrical, plumbing, all of it.
Mostly what studies? Ag
Architectural
studies?
and engineering.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's civil engineering, structural for buildings,
Okay,
architectural.
gotcha.
Um, Nonetheless, they had like a 99.6% placement rate at this community college, which means
Wow.
they found you a job after you graduated. And I ended up getting a job right out of college, and I almost didn't take it. I'm glad I ended up doing so, because 2 years later they asked me to move out to Denver, and I decided within a couple
Oh.
of them asking me if I wanted to move out, and I said yes. So I moved here 1 week after my 21st birthday without knowing a soul in the city, on a week's notice, and started anew. Is how I got out to Denver. Um,
Interesting. I did not know that.
yeah, so I worked for an engineering firm downtown for the first 3 years I was here. And it was during that final year that I started to get the entrepreneurial bug. And that was when we were going through the downturn, the recession, the housing crisis. I bought a foreclosure with a couple partners in the engineering firm by my house here, and we rented it out. Then we bought another one 6 months later. And 6 months after that, ended up quitting without knowing I was going to do it that day. I sat down at my desk and I was like, fuck, I just listened to the same song coming up the elevator that I listened the last 3 days I was coming up the elevator. I was like, I thought I was turning into a fucking robot. And I sat down at my computer and I put in my 2 weeks notice and said, I'll stay as long as you guys want me to, but I can't do this anymore. And my boss came over to me immediately and said, you can go. And
Oh shit.
without knowing that I was going to be out of a job that morning, I didn't have a job anymore. And, it was a good job. It paid well. I had free health, dental, vision, all that. I had, stock in the company. I had 401k match. I had all that, but it was not what I wanted to do. And we had just finished decriminalizing cannabis here in Denver with the group called Safer. Those are like my first friends
Yep,
in the city.
Mason Tavert.
Yep, Mason and Evan and Scott. And we ended up running a state campaign in 2006 that failed, and then a decrim in 2008 that passed in Denver. And it was when that was done, we were like, okay, or 2007 was the lowest law enforcement priority, and we thought, what's next? I feel like we've kind of stretched cannabis policy here in Denver and Colorado for what we can do right now. Do we want to work on something else together? And Evan and Scott were from Huntington, Long Island, and had always wanted to open a pizzeria. And for whatever reason, they always wanted to call it Sexy Pizza. And I lived in my truck and tent at the time, getting there. But they lived at 1101 Emerson.
This
So
was
right on
in
the
your
corner.
home, though, right? The current home that you're in right now, you were in that tent.
Yeah, and I guess I jumped the gun a little bit on that. But while they were still at that house, 1101 Emerson was where
Right by the original
Safer
spot.
headquartered. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's where Evan and Scott lived. And Caddy Corner, or a block down on 11th and Ogden, there was this pizza place, Pizza Vera, that they found out was struggling and was for sale. And we just looked into that and negotiated it and bought it. And had never made a pizza or ran a business, and decided to jump into it. And it was
What?
it was the process of exhausting every penny I had and maxing out all my debt and borrowing from friends and family to buy this pizzeria and operating it at a loss for a few months that I became several payments behind on my mortgage on my house in Santa Fe Arts District, and was about to lose it and get it taken from me, and pretty much almost having to declare bankruptcy myself. But I ended up renting all 3 bedrooms out so I could make the mortgage payment. I don't think I could have done it with 2 because you could still live in Denver affordably back then. And
Yeah.
I decided to take residence in a tent in the backyard of that house. And the tenants were so kind that they let me. I kind of knew them. I knew them through other people. They let me come in maybe once every 3 days and take a shower.
Wow. Wow.
That was I stayed in that
So
kind of
you
position.
had the pizza. So this is after you bought the house while you were working at the job at the engineering firm, and then you put in your 2 weeks, and you're like, okay, and they said you can go, and then you're like, oh fuck, and then shit started to hit the fan, and you had already bought Sexy Pizza when you were kind of still struggling, like when you had quit already.
We had got into Sexy Pizza probably 3 months before I quit.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
I was running that for some time in parallel, and just couldn't do it. I mean, one, the pizzeria needed me because we couldn't afford to pay people,
Sure.
and I hated working in a gray cubicle in a gray office space with gray people. Um, it wasn't what I moved out there for. And being a part of the cannabis, decrim movement, that legalization movement, it tuned me on to so many things. I've known cannabis isn't the devil that people said it was since I was 15, 14, 15 when I started
Right.
smoking.
Right.
But when I got out here, man, I was really introduced to the people that you didn't think of as being consumers, daily consumers, doctors and lawyers and soccer
Yeah.
moms and politicians
Oh yeah.
and religious folks and old people. And I realized very quickly working on those efforts how broad the demographic is that consumes cannabis and how normal it is and how afraid people are to stand up for it and to acknowledge it as something that's far safer than alcohol, that, shouldn't be putting 800,000 people in jail every year, which is what cannabis is doing at the time. And mind you, even with all the progress we've made today, it's about 600,000 people every year are going to jail primarily for simple cannabis possession every single year in this country. And that's predominantly black and brown people. So to think that we've somehow won because Colorado's legalized or California, it's not the case, and there's a lot of work to do. But that really opened my eyes, and I think made me realize that there's a heck of a lot more out there that I wanted to uncover and potentially try to accomplish down the road.
Damn. Okay. Okay. So you started. Okay. So you have this company, you leave the job, now you're working full-time Sexy Pizza, never made a pizza before. I assume the dudes that you have gone in on this company with kind of know how to make pizza because they're from New York.
That's
And
no.
nope. No. So it was trial and error.
Oh yeah, I remember actually paying for plane tickets for them to fly to New York because they knew people that ran pizzerias just so they could shadow for like a week, because we knew nothing. And this place was shit. I mean, it looked like pizza kind of, but it wasn't what they were making. And there were two employees pretty much that worked day and night, and they were terrible employees, and they were dealing coke out the back door,
Oh
and
God.
like there were so many reasons why we needed to learn as quickly as possible how to do this ourselves. So we learned under their name. Pizza Vera was the name of the place, as I mentioned. We stayed Pizza Vera for the first 9 months because
Oh really? Because it was that
we were
bad.
going to fuck up, right? We knew that this place was fucking ungodly filthy inside, and we needed time to one understand what we needed to get fixed, the equipment if we wanted to get new stuff, get bids done to do a remodel and all this stuff we needed time to do. So we were hesitant to change the name until we knew that this place was going to look good and present well and function well, but also that we weren't going to make a terrible impression by, selling our first pizza to someone and having them, you know, shit on us online and start that trend.
Yeah. Now what year is this?
That would have been 2008. So we bought
Right
the
when the
existing
economy collapsed.
there.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was April 2008. April 21st, 2008 is actually the day we closed. We were supposed to close on 420 and it got delayed a day. Um,
Shocker.
and then 9 months after, in January of 2009, we opened as Sexy Pizza.
Okay.
Right during the recession, right? And almost kind of like what we're dealing with now with coronavirus and what we're going to be dealing with in the months upcoming. We're going to be in a recession again. And I think that's the beauty of pizza is whether economic times are good or bad, people are eating pizza.
That's true.
And hopefully we can feed folks for, in a manner that's a hell of a lot more affordable than
Yeah.
a lot of other options out there.
Now, what was it like going from not knowing what the fuck you're doing at all, and having to learn this, and not only this isn't a business of like, of where you can fuck up easily like this. You can fuck up and someone could get sick, and you could get sued, right?
Sure.
Like what was it like learning how to go through the food process, getting passed by the inspections, having zero restaurant experience, and blindly going into like, I think I can make pizza. Why not?
It's a learning process. I don't think a lot of people realize how much goes into running a business and definitely
Because
starting one.
it's way
And
more business than it is pizza.
it certainly is. I
Like once
mean,
you figure out the pizza, it's like, okay, we got the pizza. It's fine.
any businesses, and I would encourage anybody that's passionate about what they do, that if they are considering starting a business, that if they don't understand that side of themselves or that side of the industry, the endeavor, and they're not really into learning and really wasting, it feels like wasting because of the bureaucracy of municipal government, right? It's
Your
a full
favorite.
time job, and unless you're willing to do that full time and then do all the other things that you're passionate about in the wee hours of the evening and overnight, you better have a partner or hire somebody to help do that with you. It's one thing I think to have you have an online shop or something like that, something a little more simple. Like
Right.
if all of a sudden you're employing 25 people and you have brick and mortar and you have health department and fire department and building department and all that, that's a different animal. And it really takes someone who's been through that process before to guide you through it. We learned a lot of mistakes. I guarantee we spent a lot more money than we needed to. It took a lot longer than it needed to because that was our first time doing it. But at the same time, I don't think I would have wanted to pay somebody, even if I had the money to do that,
Because you
because
wanted that experience.
banging your fucking head against the wall, dealing with the city, dealing with the state, dealing with, neighbors and customers and all of these firsthand, you can't gain those experiences by reading a book or watching a how to or talking to a friend that's been there, done that.
A
It doesn't
master class
equate.
on Instagram.
It, it does not equate to dealing with that mind-numbing shit in person. And I think it builds you stronger for what's to come.
Now, so you would have opened a business regardless. It sounds like, and it sounds like you would have blindly gone into anything. Um, if you had to do it again, would you do pizza again?
So pizza was never my idea, obviously, right?
What
I'm
was
a,
your ideal food restaurant?
so actually at the time when we were thinking about sexy pizza, I was actually coming up with a plan for my own restaurant, which I'm so happy I didn't do because I mean, for a lot of reasons, Brent, but
Okay, let's hear it.
mostly because I got to tell you, running a 1,200 square foot by the slice pizzeria is a hell of a lot easier than a full-fledged fucking restaurant with a full
Yeah.
bar and
Ugh.
all that, which I was thinking about. And I would have been way over my head. I would have been another story of a restaurant failing in its first 6 to 12 months, right? It happens all too often because people go into it unprepared, and I would have been grossly unprepared. But it was
Because
uh,
not only do they not know how to run the business, they also don't know how to run like the business end of it, but they don't know how to run the restaurant end of the business either.
yeah, there's the behind the scenes, the financial aspects of it, the bill paying, the money lending, the dealing with investors, the all of that. There's the negotiating a lease and getting all this the corporate structure and the governance in place, and there's just so many things behind the scenes. But yeah, running an efficient restaurant, an efficient bar, where waste is minimal and people aren't stealing and employees are happy, that is not easy,
I
right?
could
I
see
mean
that.
that is why most restaurants and bars fail, beyond food issues or things like that. It's a very difficult business to run well, and that's why you see so many big chains just thrive and make it methodical. That's why you see a smash burger, which started the same time that sexy pizza did in 2008,
Oh wow.
now has like 150 or 200 locations because they decided to franchise. And it's this machine like rollout of new stores, that I would never personally want to do.
Why
But
not?
um, I think it takes away a lot of the personality of it. Each of our stores is so different. Our relationship with the communities, the nonprofits we support, the efforts we engage in with each
So
of those
you're
stores.
going for the community and the ambiance that matches the area, not oh here's a new shopping area. Let's put our thing in there.
Yeah, and we've been asked a million times to go to those shopping centers, but we really wait for locations to come to us. We haven't picked a location. We haven't gone actively searching for one as we've expanded into our now fourth location opening in June and our fifth in Kansas City next year. They've been just they've come to us, when the time was right, for us financially, for us with our time and our resources to give, because it's not easy to run two or three restaurants and to try to open a fourth and a fifth in parallel.
Right.
Um, so we've never forced it, and I'm happy with that. I would rather have, four or five restaurants under a name that are functioning well, that are doing well by their employees and their community and putting out a good product, than I would, having 100 stores that are operating in a manner that's very shallow, very extractive of employees, very extractive of communities, that doesn't have a soul or a connection, to the communities in which they operate. I just have no desire to do that. I don't know why you're laughing at me, but I fucking mean it, Brent.
It sounded so much like shots fired. Like, these soulless corporations that don't care about their communities and just franchise wherever they want to go.
And let me be real. That was not a knock on Smash Burger. I enjoy a good Smash Burger from time to time. Um, but you can't tell me that McDonald's operates with the same care and compassion that Sexy Pizza does.
Sure, I would agree with that. Also, how is there not a slice shop in airports across this country?
Like just in general?
Yeah, I feel like, and I'm not like talking about like the House of Via or the Via, whatever it was, where they have like, it's like a Sbarro type place. I'm talking a slice, quick, bang, bang, bang. I feel like that's perfect for a fucking airport.
We've actually been asked to consider applying to be one of the new restaurants at the airport over the last few years. We've looked into it ourselves. It is fucking impossible to work with airports.
Money wise?
Yeah, I mean the rent, like I'm talking about paying 12 to 20 bucks a square foot per year in Denver for our stores for rent. At airports, you're looking 50 to 150 bucks a square foot.
Jesus.
And you're talking about doing such an egregious amount of food that you have to automate a lot of your processes. So in theory, food quality goes down. Those employees get paid fucking shit. And they're all governed. It's all like managed by these rules that like Denver International Airport has about how people are paid, how they're treated, things like that. So at the end of the day, it's not worth the hassle. Mm-hmm. And unless we're a company, if I was a pizzeria that says I would love to be in 20 states by 2025, if that's my goal, maybe going to DIA and opening a place might, because you're building brand recognition with these,
these
people,
travelers, for sure.
But, we're a Denver-based pizzeria that is opening in Kansas City just because our partner's working there. Like we don't. It sounds like a pain in the fucking ass. I think after Park Hill, we're going to be looking at the Barnum neighborhood in Denver, which is like Southwest Denver.
Okay.
Yeah, but airports, no, thank you.
So
I don't know why. One of these big change or medium-sized change should take on a quality slice at airports across the country. I don't disagree with you, Brent.
I just think with how much I travel, I'm surprised at how fast of a food that is, and how few of them I've seen in my time at an airport.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on that, and I'll take pictures for you when I'm out and about when all this is done.
Well, I'm still trying to make a restaurant with my neighbor over there. She makes the best fucking. She's allergic to fucking everything, like gluten, milk, fucking. You name it, she's allergic to it, and she made a allergy whatever biscuits and gravy.
An allergy biscuits and gravy.
An allergy-free biscuits and an allergy-free B&G, and it was delightful. It was really good.
Can you believe that she actually is allergic to these things?
Yeah, because I've because
I know that's
her for a while.
Now that people aren't, so.
Yeah, no, she had her left breast was leaking into her body. She had fake breasts, and her left one was leaking into her body for like 9 years, and it just fucked up everything.
That's a sign that something needs to change.
Yeah. She got him out. That was kind of the change.
Well, I'm glad she's in a better place.
She'll be on an episode upcoming. She's a sound healer now, and she was in Sons of Anarchy as well.
I remember you mentioning this lady.
That's the one.
Great. Tell her I say hi, and I dig sound therapy. It's actually, man.
Yo, sound therapy is awesome.
Things. Oh, go ahead.
It's so cool. No, it's so cool. Like I feel like not enough people are into, or like you hear about it and you're like, this is ridiculous.
Brent, I got to tell you, whether it's my involvement in cannabis, I recently did Reiki for the first time.
Oh, Reiki's cool.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, what gives those practices a bad name are the fucking douchebags that predominantly represent it or historically have. When everybody's, not hip to it. And they're just like these fringe fucking people that That, yeah, sure, a lot are nice, but they're fucking weird as fuck. And it's easy to be turned off by cannabis or yoga or meditation or, psycho therapy, using psychedelics and all this stuff because, yeah, a lot of the people that are the loudest are the most fucking batshit crazy.
Yeah, you're
But I gotta
exactly
tell
right.
you, there is a lot of value in a lot of this stuff, and I think we're starting to see a lot more. I'm not even going to say normal because that's not the right word, but a lot more. Um, oh, what's a good word? People that play nice with others are starting to understand these things and get them out to a broader audience, which I think is a good thing. But I love sound therapy.
That's what kind of turned me off to the cannabis industry was the
Yeah,
cannabis people.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Is like it 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 was at marijuana radio. It got by the end of it, McKenna and I just sat in the green room or in the studio, and we just didn't want to go talk to anybody because it was just a dick measuring contest of like, well, my weed's better, my hash is pure, and I'm like, who cares? Let's just have fun.
It's that rule that I just made up that you know that
I like these rules.
10% of any demographic is fucking trash,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
It's like people, I work a lot on
Except for
homelessness.
cat
People are like,
owners, it's like eighty
oh,
percent
these
of
homeless
cat
people are
owners.
just fucking horrendous. It's like, no, it's like this shitty fucking 10% that are aggressive and violent and all of these things that we don't like. Guess what? That's 10% of Democrats and Republicans and wealthy and poor and black and white. And there's a certain percentage of any demographic that's going to ruin it for the rest of the bunch. And I feel like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, cannabis at the start, and I know exactly who you're talking about, all these fucking people, made me
It ruins
question
it.
whether I wanted to be in the industry. And
Right.
I had to fight those fucking stereotypes, trying to professionalize this thing and to be a responsible business owner and community member and somebody that could expand to other states. It's hard to talk people into that when all they're thinking about is that douchebag that you saw sitting on the couch
Right.
measuring his dick against Billy's LAOG.
Right. Right. Well, okay, so that leads us into my next part that I wanted to talk about. So after you started Sexy Pizza, you then ventured into the cannabis industry, right?
So yeah, Sexy Pizza, April
Legally.
2008, and then and then Denver Relief was my first cannabis business. We opened in Denver in May of 2009. So it was 13 months after
Yeah.
that we started as a delivery service. Now, this is when I was sleeping in the tent.
This is what I like
And
about you is you're not bashful about your history. You
not at all.
like you that's what built you to what that's what's so great about what you are now. Is you've been through you started at the bottom, now you're here.
I think it's important for people to know that, for a lot of folks that are perceived as successful, that the road hasn't been that easy.
Yeah.
I look back at my high school days. I talk about this a lot. I smoked crack and meth and snorted heroin and,
That's
did
Nebraska.
every psychedelic. Yeah, that is Nebraska. and, but that doesn't make me a bad person, right? And I think you would have a lot of people that would look at a 15, 16-year-old that's doing those things and cast them out. They're not, that's done. I'm not going to hire that person. I don't want that person to marry my daughter.
For
I
the
don't want,
rest of time.
yeah. And I tell that story often about my early drug use because I think it's important that we, one, don't criminalize people for experimenting with their bodies and their mind, with their body and their mind. But also that just because you do something that might turn out to be a mistake and you might consider it to be a mistake yourself, that doesn't make you a bad person. And that
Especially when you're young.
if,
Or
if
just
yeah,
period, I guess. Period.
if if you continue to get shit on because of making these choices that are our own, society's never going to accept you. I always looked at it as I've been thinking about this since I was about 21, 22.
Okay.
How do people look at you when you get out of jail? They're untrusting of you. They don't necessarily, they're hesitant to keep your own the kids, or like you're just not good company, right? You're not considered to
Right.
be an outstanding community member. Now, how do people view you when you get out of the hospital? They're caring and they welcome you in and can I bring you anything? That's the difference between us sending people that have substance abuse issues to jail as opposed to, getting the help that they need to get better when they're ready. And
Interesting.
and I think until we start understanding it like that, that substance abuse is a matter of public health. Homelessness is a matter of public health. Sex work, prostitution is a matter of public health. People are always going to engage in these things, be a part of these systems. They're not doing it because they're bad people. They're doing it because something happened in their life that caused trauma, that created a moment of, financial limitations. That there's a million reasons why people end up on the streets or start moving to substance abuse or start moving to selling their body. And in my opinion, none of those reasons are worth criminalizing somebody for going through that trauma. I think that person deserves the health care, the mental health care, the housing, the opportunity at a fair job with a fair wage, to get back on their feet. And what I've seen in the projects that I've worked on is that when you provide people housing, when you give them love and compassion, when you show them respect, most of those people end up improving their lives on their own. You don't need to push them in that direction. And I just know that there's a better way to do it. And I'm going to, look forward to continuing these conversations and opening people's eyes to not just the end of the war on drugs, but like this health, this human right that is housing, right? Bernie talks a lot about healthcare. Bernie Sanders does. Yes, I believe healthcare is a human right, but
You're a
so is
big
housing.
Bernie fan, I bet.
I am. I think he has his limitations, but yeah, the man's talking about all the things that need to be talked about in this country. Elizabeth Warren in a lot of ways as well. But and it sucks that neither of them are going to win, and we got fucking fuckhead Joe Biden and fuckhead Donald Trump going against each other. It's going to be like a dementia contest. Um, which the debates are going to be funny, no doubt.
And
But
we lost a viewer.
that's not why I want presidential debates in this country. But housing and education and healthy food and information, the internet, like those are human rights as well. And I think we as a society need to strive in that direction. And it doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative, right? Liberals want it because yeah, let's be compassionate, let's love people, and let's give them a chance. And everybody's human. We all deserve. I agree with all that stuff, no doubt. You got a lot of
It's a hard
conservative.
pill to swallow, though. It's a very hippie pill to swallow.
It is. So then I could look at the other route, right? And this goes into when I was running for office, things that I learned. How can I talk to a Republican, a staunch conservative about these issues and why I think we should give somebody housing? And I would go to them and I would say, we've seen at the Colorado Village Collaborative, we had started to see it, but now we're really seeing it. That when you give somebody housing and maintain them in that for a year, they improve their lives. Right now at our Village Collaborative, our tiny home village for people experiencing homelessness in Denver, we house 21 people. All 21 have jobs or are going to school, right? That wasn't the case when they were on the streets a few months prior. We've had
Interesting.
We've had 9 people move on to permanent housing in the history of this. We just got in the city's budget this year for 125,000, and we have a city council person pushing us to get 1.5 million next year. We're opening a second village this year because what we're finding is that for us to build a house, to build the actual house for somebody, and to keep them in that house for a year, providing all of the social services that they need, all the laundry, all the everything, all the utilities, zero rent to them, that doing that, building the house and maintaining them in it for a year costs less than the city currently spends per person living on the streets in police contact and
Holy
the
shit.
sweeps, the public works sweeps, and the emergency room visits
Holy shit.
and the jail. And so now we're getting data that says, okay, this is better for the taxpayer if we give this person housing and maintain them in that for a year so they can get back on their feet. Because I got to tell you, after that year, that person is generally moving on to stable housing from our village, whereas under the city's current mode of operation, where they're spending more money per year keeping them on the streets, they're also paying for that person to again be on the streets the next year, whereas we're getting them off the streets. So we're saving taxpayers in an incredible way, and that's a message I can take to conservative voters and data and reports by University of Denver and these other entities, that shows that this is a win.
Holy shit. That is blowing my mind. I need to update. Sorry, I'm updating that graphic because that seems like it's the fix. Now, is this like, or do they have to apply for this, or like, how do you choose who? Because of course the thought that comes to my head immediately was, well, you build enough of these and then it becomes, you know, a slum, I guess, or a ghetto, or whatever it is. It could cause more. And this sounds like my uncle talking. The freeloaders, they're just gonna live there for free. So how do you choose which 21 people get to live in that village?
So let me unpack all the things you said right there. First of all, with regard to like these concentrated slums, I don't think we'll ever be more than 20 houses. Our current village is 19. Our new proposed one's 19. They're moved in places throughout the city, so you don't have more than 19 homes in any one neighborhood.
Okay, cool.
And the neighborhood votes and is a part of the process to approve them being there. And there are ongoing like monthly meetings with the neighborhood and the city to make sure that everybody's on board with what's happening there. Okay.
That's awesome.
Second, um, what was the last thing you said? You said something after the slums comment. Oh, staying there for
Forever
uh,
freeloading.
perpetuity. People have brought up that with our model as well, and they said, you don't charge them rent for a free place to stay? No, we don't. And what we've seen again in 2.5 years is running this project, 9 people have chosen to move on to more permanent, supportive, stable housing. Because I got to tell you, once you've lived on the street, you get tired of living on the street and you get this tiny home and it's like, oh man, this is fucking great. And
What? So
then
what? So
what
what
happens
happened
with the tiny home?
to the
You
other
get,
12?
what's that?
What happened to the other 12?
The other 12 are still living there. But what I'm saying is, I don't care if people want to stay there 6 months or 3 years. Eventually, people want to improve their situation, and they will. And guess what? Even if they don't, if one person, 10 people, 100 people, I don't give a shit, chooses to live in this tiny home that is given to them for free for the next 50 years, it is costing taxpayers and society less
That's
to give them that
mind-boggling.
house than it is to let them live on a tarp on the streets.
That's fucking mind-boggling.
Period.
Are you sure those numbers are correct?
100%. These are numbers that are understood by the city, which is why the city is investing in this as a solution now.
That's bananas.
Because you have to think about every time when you're living on the streets, your mental health, your issues with substance abuse dramatically increase, right? How many times do police have to engage with people on the streets? How many times does Public Works have to go clean up people that have made a mess on the streets? How many times do those people get admitted to the emergency room, which is their only form of health care, which is incredibly expensive? How many times do these people have to go to jail, where it's 3 times more costly to house somebody in jail than it is outside of jail? This snowballs on our tax rolls, right? Because government's not going to do anything as efficient as a private entity either. So we can provide this housing for far less than the city spends and save taxpayers a fuck ton of money.
How much is far less, like percentage wise, or
So
like?
our most recent estimations have it that we are building a home and keeping somebody in that home for a full calendar year for $21,000 to $23,000. Okay.
Okay.
The city, from a recent report, I think it was by Denver University, is spending about $32,000 a year per person living on the streets in Denver right now.
Gotcha. Whoa.
So
Whoa.
we're talking about 50% more to keep them homeless. And then we're paying that again next year instead of continuing to keep them off the streets. So let's say this person is on the street 5 years until they die. That's $150,000 plus that the city's spending while that person's living on the street, versus us spending $21,000 to $23,000 to build them a house, to keep them in it for a year until they find better housing situation, get a job, all that. Because keep in mind, it's hard to get a place to live, an apartment. It's hard to get a job
If you
without
don't have a place, right, right.
and even if you do have the address, to have just the mental sanity to go into work every day after you've been woken up by the cops 3 times last night,
Sure.
over and over, carrying all your shit on your fucking back, you know?
Now, there's a shitload of homeless people in Denver for sure. Do you think that this method would work, or this idea, this policy, whatever, would work in places like here in LA, where I heard recently that Los Angeles, either Los Angeles or Southern California, has 25% of the nation's homeless people.
LA County has over 100,000 people living on the streets.
That's fucking bananas.
And to put that into perspective, that number in Denver is between 5 and 6,000. So
Wow.
20 times more in LA. What I'll tell you is that it is feasible because other cities are already doing it. Now, Portland and Seattle and Austin all gave us ideas for how we wanted to do this, but ours is different, right?
Because we have less people?
Not necessarily. It's in how they're managed. When you go to Portland or Austin or Seattle, they're predominantly self-governed, right? Self-governed means that kind of anything goes at some of these places. How they're built,
The
they're not built
camps
to,
or
yeah,
the villages.
the houses aren't built to building code. A lot of them allow drugs to be used on site, which I'm personally not. I don't have an issue with. But in the way we're doing it in Denver with city and foundation dollars, people can consume cannabis and alcohol and things like that, but not illegal drugs. That's for another story. But what I'm getting at is I think we're the only model in the country where the private space, and by that I mean not just nonprofits, which we are that manages it, but construction companies coming on as partners, right? Developers, contractors coming on as partners and working hand in hand with the city on this, right? Working hand in hand with other service providers. That does not happen in this country. You have these anarchist nonprofits that want housing as a human right, and they have all the faith behind them, and they're saying all the right things, but they're doing it in a very controversial, very adversarial way, right? They're not working with the city. They're not working with these more established nonprofits. We're doing all that. Right. Every stakeholder has a seat at our table. And that's why I think we can be an example on how we can do this elsewhere in the country. So with LA, for example, can we build 100,000 tiny homes? I don't think so. I don't think that's realistic. And I don't think we need to. I think there's a lot of things that go into curing homelessness. I think it starts with giving people a fair wage, which I know a lot of the West Coast cities are working on increasing that. I mean, if you live in LA or Seattle or Portland, you should be getting paid $20 an hour minimum, in my opinion.
Right.
It starts with that. It starts with universal health care. But after that, we have to start looking at all the housing solutions that are possible for us. And I could talk for 3 hours on this, and I'm not going to, but we need to look at tent encampments for people at the bottom of the run, right? We need to look at tiny homes. We need to look at better subsidies going to developers building lower income housing, because that doesn't get built. We only have this high low income housing, this 80%. Like single individuals making 56K in Denver are the people that can buy most of the affordable housing. There's nothing for people making minimum wage to 50. It's not getting built, right? But so there's like there's 100 different things that we need to do and start chipping away at to fix that. But I do believe tiny homes are a way to house thousands in LA and to do it very inexpensively. There's a ton of land there to do it.
Because you would think that it would cost that the cost is probably similar with how much our county spends on homeless people here. It's 33,000 in Denver. You would think it'd be more money here. Maybe not.
I think yes and no. I'd be curious to know that number actually, and I might look it up. One thing I do know about LA's homeless community, though, is it's much more established, and it's almost got its own governance to it, right? Like
we've been around for a while here.
when you look at Skid Row and all, like you have people that have literally been on Skid Row and in that community for 10, 20, 30 years, right? You don't have that kind of continuity in Denver. Denver's still a very young city. There's not a lot of cities that are as big and have that continuous thing like Skid Row that LA has. So I think
Right.
LA is a unique beast, and it would take a lot of self-governance amongst that community. And I want to talk to you more about self-governance too, if you have if you have an interest, because you asked how people get selected,
Yeah.
right, for the tiny home.
Yep.
The people that live in the village, we have applications open. So we had 120 apps for our last 9 homes that we added, and they pick the people that live there pick based on
Oh,
need, on how they
wow.
get along. They interview them. It's their choice. It's not
So
ours
that
as
you're
these
building
outsiders.
their own community.
Yes, and they have responsibilities each week to each other, to the chores of the village, to maintaining their household, to showing personal improvements and getting a job. It teaches them how to reintegrate back into society. And I think LA's done a lot of that already with Skid Row and that culture that they have down there.
Yeah.
Like you have people that, why would they leave? They're actually operating pretty well in this kind of underground market. Those people should deserve to take that comfort that they feel and bring it up to where we're at in society in general. And
Right.
there's so many smart, well capable people that are there that just need to be supported a little more and given a little more compassion in getting out. It's going to take all that in LA because that problem's huge and it's only going to get bigger after
Right.
this
Yeah.
coronavirus issue.
How tiny is a tiny house?
But it depends. If you're a well-to-do white person building it for your second home, it's probably about 300, 400 square feet. Um, it's funny. They had a tiny home convention in Colorado a couple years ago, and some of my activist friends went to it. And they got out and they're like, "Fuck!" It's like all the trailer or the van life people,
Yeah.
that are
Yep.
like
Yep. Yep.
really
Yep.
rich white 20, 30 somethings that are doing it more of like, this is really fucking hip, dude, and I'm gonna wear my flannels and go take Instagram pictures in my tiny home. Uh, the tiny homes that we have are 96 square feet, I think.
Okay.
So no bigger than a standard bedroom. And all of the, right now, anyways, the toilet, so the shitter, the shower, and the common areas for cooking and living and all that are in
Yep.
a common space that everybody shares.
Oh, really? In
Yeah.
like
So in the
a
tiny homes, just the housing itself, the bedroom.
there's 21 buildings or like tiny homes and then like a 22nd place that houses the kitchen and whatnot.
Yep, it's got a near commercial kitchen, a bunch of lockers, several showers, several bathrooms, meeting areas, computers for people to
See,
use.
I like that because then yeah, like that's fine, but most people are gonna want to move out of that. They're not gonna want that forever.
Exactly.
But that's fucking great. And if that one random person does, if it's less money, then it seems like a lot less money. And shit, that's cumulative every single fucking year. We're saving an extra 10 grand. That's interesting.
I'm just trying to save you money as a taxpayer, Brent.
I appreciate that, dude.
I don't care about these people at all. I just want to save some tax dollars.
I wish everyone felt that way.
You know? And I'm not going to go on in this, but same thing on drug use, right? Like, why are you throwing people in jail because they decided to do a little cocaine? Like, give me a break.
Right.
You are making that person's life infinitely worse, their family's life infinitely worse, and you're costing taxpayers a fuck ton of money for just sending them to jail instead of, do you have a problem? Do you want to get some help? Yeah, I do. Okay, here's your help. Or, yeah, I'm not quite ready. I need some other things to happen in life until I'm ready to get help. That's so much better than the alternative of sending somebody to jail.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Now okay. So we got. Let me update this slide. There we go. Kayvan, perfect. Now okay. So before we got talking about tiny homes, we were talking about your cannabis ventures. What made you want to get into? Sorry, someone texted me and asked me if my show ended early, which means that it may not be streaming still. Hold on.
Kayvan likes.
um. Okay, so You started so you started Denver Relief. And this is 2009, right?
Correct.
And at this point, it was a delivery service, which is basically how I had you in my phone as Kayvan Weed Delivery. You would show up on a bicycle under the medical marijuana laws. And then that's how I started meeting you. You guys started coming to Marijuana Radio in like a crew. Uh,
There were three of us. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you felt like you guys would like come in with like you had your weed in a box. It was all pretty looking. Like I think y'all
We
had
wanted
like
to
this.
set a new standard, Brent.
Well, and standard you did. Um, Interesting. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna do a quick little
You're
pause
like
here.
David Letterman right now.
I am.
Yeah, just with not interviewing me.
Sorry, I want to make sure that the interview is actually happening. And
Oh, should we start over?
nope. uh, Whatever. Okay, if it's going, it's going. I mean, I know it is, and she can find it later. Yep, still live on YouTube. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Okay, now you started Denver Relief after you had no idea what you were doing in the pizza industry. I can only assume you weren't making a lot of money, and then you decided to start a cannabis company. Where did this how did you have money to do this? How did you get into this venture as well?
Well, I mentioned that when I started Sexy Pizza, I started with my cannabis advocacy friends, right?
Yep.
So through them, I had met this pretty damn good grower of the cannabis, and I had also met someone who was helping folks get doctors' recommendations. And mind you, this was 2008, 2009. You didn't
Yep.
have many doctors that were feeling safe
To
about
recommend
using
cannabis for
their
sure.
medical license to recommend cannabis. I mean, there were probably four doctors in the state of Colorado that were comfortable doing it. And one of my initial partners had that connection. That's Ian Sieb. He now works in Governor Polis's office.
Yep.
He's the cannabis policy advisor for the state.
Oh, I
And
didn't know he got that job.
yeah, he likes to call himself the cannabis czar, but that's not an actual title.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. He seems to be enjoying it. And, Governor Polis is a great guy, and happy he's governor. He's been a supporter of cannabis since the days of no one supporting cannabis. So I was really happy to have him as an ally. And then the other partner who's now gone and then was replaced by my most current partner was just a great grower of cannabis. So me with my very infantile business experience starting Sexy Pizza, and this guy that had the doctor connection, and this guy that was growing great cannabis, it seemed like a perfect mashup, and that's how Denver Relief started. Now, none of us had money, right? You had, um, a real estate broker during the recession, a guy who was losing his ass and living in a tent, starting a pizzeria, and a cannabis grower who smoked all his profits. And you didn't have uh, the money to start this. And fortunate enough, the laws were so lax back then. This was
They
this was
really
right
were.
after
They really were. I got my
this.
med card for having nausea from the Adderall that I was prescribed.
You could still do that today, Mister Gill.
I still
Uh,
do, but I have other
Not that you
things
need it, but
that
that was right after Obama got elected, and Obama said during the presidency that he wasn't going to use federal resources to go after these state compliant businesses. So you saw this green rush in Colorado, and we were part of that. So we could start without a retail. We could just have a delivery service, and we started with $4,000, which Ian and I rummaged together, and half a pound of cannabis, which the grower brought to the table. And we started collecting patients and having them assign us as the caregiver, and growing more cannabis, and delivering wider radii, and just growing until 9 months later, we were able to build out Denver Relief at One Broadway, our first retail center.
how hard was it to get the paperwork going back then? Because I mean, like was it as lax on that end as it was getting the license as well, like the medical card?
So, I mean, at the time, because there was no law around it, we were using Amendment 20. You know what that is?
Yes.
Amendment 20 is it was the constitutional amendment in Colorado that allowed medical cannabis to be legal, allowed patients to have it, all that. There was loose language in there that seemingly kind of allowed for a commercial framework to exist, right? Where we could grow for 100 patients and sell it out of maybe a store, maybe a delivery service. There's nothing
Do you think they phrased it like that on purpose?
to an extent, yes. Um, the goal is to leave it vague enough that you can fix the shit that you don't know afterwards, right? So maybe it wasn't done with the commercial aspects in mind, but it was done to leave it open to say maybe a commercial aspect is an option, and we want to be able to pursue that, not limit ourselves, especially being a constitutional amendment. Because the only way to change that is to go back to the voters, and you wouldn't want to do that after you pass something, right?
Sure.
So there was enough language that we said let's open a business along with a lot of other people, and there was nothing at the state level. There was nothing in any of these cities, Denver or other municipalities, that said you can't do this. So when you had these thousands of businesses open across the state in a year period, the city and the state weren't going to say, we're going to shut you down. Patients are going to say, go fuck yourselves. These people are delivering our medicine. They're giving us, what we need. By then you had 100,000 patients. You're not going to say no to those people. You have to regulate it. And that's when you started to see the cities and the states come up with a regulatory framework and have us be licensed. However,
that's when I started seeing folks lose their life savings.
No doubt.
I mean,
You had cities play games with people and say, well, we want a dispensary here. That's okay, because this is a shitty neighborhood. We want to grow here. That's okay. This is a shitty neighborhood. Oh, but Bill, he donates to our campaigns, and he doesn't like this down the street from him. Like, that's how it worked back then.
right.
Was you had the city arbitrarily deciding where these businesses can operate, and it put a lot of people in business.
And they would take your license money, which back then was like $10,000-$20,000, and then be like, "Yeah, we decided we're not going to allow it."
Definitely. Yeah, we paid a lot of money back then. But at the same time, no place in the country except for California and what they had done that. And California did it a decade prior, but it was this.
It seems like California did it wrong.
What's that?
It seems like California did it wrong compared to how Colorado did it.
That's tough to say because California did it first, and
True.
It's hard to know what you don't know
when you're doing it first, right?
California won, or they battled and won and lost a lot of things that were important to how the cannabis industry is today. I mean, people like the folks at Berkeley Patients Group and Harborside are the OGs in this industry. Those are the people that battled local, state, and federal government, that won lawsuits against the IRS and the federal government, to let patients have medical cannabis. That shit was happening in the late 90s, in the early part of this century. Like, those people deserve all the credit that they get for being the folks that set the table for Colorado to even happen.
So because Colorado's so great, it is because, well, the reason Colorado's so part of it is because of what we learned from California.
Correct. But I would also say that Colorado's broken as fuck too, and it's not as great as people paint it. It's inequitable.
Better than most places. It seems like the Wild West still, to be honest.
With regard to consumer access, yet. But what do we have access to? In my opinion, a bunch
cheap
of shit.
Weed.
I buy home grow because I don't like what I get from dispensaries here in Colorado, and I choose to buy from home growers that still know what they're doing.
You know how hard it is to find a home grower now?
I mean, pretty easy.
For you, I'm sure, but like
let's talk about this offline, Brent.
I'm just saying though, I do believe in that. I do believe that the next step of cannabis in this country is going to be small batch, in-home, non-regulated weed,
just like we saw with alcohol.
Because you're right, dude. We were talking about this, and like this stuff is only able to use certain nutrients that are approved worldwide or nationwide for certain things, and I think that's That's what I think is like the weed looks fine, but none of it's hitting like it should. It's not connoisseur grade weed like we used to have when it was just medical.
Can I tell you, I hadn't had home grow in, it's been a few months, I'd say. I've been buying from our place out in Nevada, which I think, as far as dispensary weed, is about as good as it gets. My brother's running that show out there right now
Mm-hmm.
and doing great things. But I haven't smoked homegrown in a while, and I rolled a joint of this yesterday when I got it after eating 2 burritos at El Taco de Mexico.
God, those
And
pictures looked good. I
it was
miss
so good.
green chili, dude.
It was so good. That green chili.
Yeah.
But I decided to smoke a joint of this stuff. I woke up this morning. I was like, "Fuck, it's chilly in here." And I left the back door wide open last night, just because I was so high. I just went to bed. Like the locking the doors, even closing them, was off limits. I hadn't been that high in a while. It felt good.
Oh man. So you cannabis today. So you I I'm a one-man band here. I got to change all the graphics and pay attention to the story and interviews. So give me a break. So you started Denver Relief, and that's how I met you. You were on bicycles for the first bit, and then you expanded 9 months later. It seems like 9 months is your magic number after starting a business and then getting it into your name.
I get sick of things, businesses, relationships.
Well, don't have a baby.
Ooh.
But so you did that, and what was your experience from early cannabis industry to when you sold your dispensary? Because you sold your dispensary to one of our sponsors, Terrapin Care Station, and then you sold your grow to Willie Nelson's cooperative, correct?
Not a cooperative, but a business, yes.
His business, his business. Um, what was so up until you sold? What was what was your experience positive in the cannabis industry?
So I think there's
It was
cannabis
lucrative.
ecosystem. There's cannabis ecosystem. Ecosystems when I started doing the advocacy and the, preparing for that regulated market, all the
Okay,
things that led up to that. Those are some of the best years of my life. I
really?
wouldn't I wouldn't take that away for anything. I was poor. I was, I didn't have the ability to do anything I wanted, but I was really living and experiencing things and doing things with people. And I was living in a fucking tent. And life was so unique and healthy. And I didn't have stuff. I gave all my stuff away, you know? Like I didn't have it. It was the most free I think I've ever felt. So I love that part of it. And
Do you
just the
think that
work was
that's
great.
what impacted you so much to be kind of what you are today in terms of like a giving back, like you like the social entrepreneur that you are? Do you think that that's really what impacted that the most compared to anything else in your life?
I think there's three things. I think my mom and just her role in my life, I think made me a very giving person. I think getting involved in my early days of the cannabis industry and giving up so much of what I thought was important and finding out what was way more important through that was a big part of that. And I think my psychedelic experiences, both in a grand state, using larger doses and having these kind of outwardly experiences, but also just like microdosing. I've been microdosing psilocybin now for about 45 days. This is my third time doing it. And you feel different. You feel better, more patient, happier, willing to put up with, I don't know, the BS that I think builds anxiety and stress in us so much. So, but it's been those things, I think,
Hmm.
kind of, rolling around on the floor together that have given me the,
I think that's too many mushrooms.
hey, we've all been there.
um, so would you? So okay, so then you took the cannabis industry on, and you kind of decided. It seems like you decided that wasn't that wasn't
Yeah.
that wasn't really the
I,
way that you wanted to go with it.
yeah, I guess I didn't really finish your last question. I mean, those first few years were great, right? And starting a business is great, right? We were working with local officials, state officials, federal officials. We had media come in, 60 Minutes, CNN, CBS Sunday Morning, Washington Journal, or the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, BBC. Like everybody came in, and it was so exciting that we could be a good face for the industry, right? We didn't want it to be
Those
presented
people we
to the
hate, those
masses.
stoners on the couch.
Exactly.
Right.
And when somebody asks you to represent the industry in a positive light because it's going to get presented to a lot of people, the thought of it being fucking Jerry on the fucking couch with his LAOG is not what we wanted to be out there. So we always offered to do that. And it was scary at first. Fuck. I mean, the first time I was ever on TV was live on CNN debating Happy Haynes about whether cannabis should be legalized in the state of Colorado. First time ever on TV, live on CNN, in like a 2 minute back and forth debate. I did great, but it was
Live? Like it wasn't
correct.
pre-recorded?
Live, live.
Jesus.
Oh my God, scared the shit out of me.
Wow.
Nonetheless, we
What a
got
way to
through it.
break yourself in.
Yeah, no doubt. My worst experience was when Steve Croft from 60 Minutes came in to our store. I was so nervous. I was sweating bullets. They ended up only putting my portion of it online and not on
Oh
the
no.
TV show because I was so wet. Um, but like that was fun, right? Like that was fun. But then now where we are today and where I've been kind of the last 3 years, you're helping. I helped co-found a company in Illinois, Cresco Labs, right? They're publicly traded now. I mentioned earlier, like you
What
to
is
go
Cresco
that.
Labs?
What's that?
What is Cresco Labs? It's an extraction
Cresco
company, right?
Labs. We started. No, we're vertically integrated, so we grow, extract, manufacture products, and retail vertically in every state that we operate in. Now in 11 states,
Okay.
and we started in Illinois, and I was the initial CEO of the company, and we applied for one of 21 grow licenses. Grow and processing were combined, one of 21 in the entire state. And we were a bunch of underdogs, didn't know if we were going to win. I had just got my ass kicked in DC and Connecticut and Massachusetts in these half processes. And I was at the bottom. I was pissed off. I was sad. I was whatever. And I applied with these fucking dudes that knew nothing about cannabis that came out and interviewed us and a million other consultants and decided to pick us because we talked about the community integration and all the things we were doing at Denver Relief and Sexy Pizza. And we applied and we ended up winning the top three scores in the state, and won 3 of 21 licenses. And that was our.
Whoa. You won three. You won 3 licenses.
And I applied with another a team that I consulted in that I didn't have ownership in, and they won 2. So I
Oh
won 5 of the
wow.
21 in Illinois to start. And
Good lord.
yeah,
Jesus. Fucking baller, dude.
that's what I've done. I've earned
Are you a
applications.
paperwork nerd or like what? Like how are you like?
I
Because
gotta
I've
tell you,
seen these. I've seen these applications. They are thousands of pages. Like what
they,
the?
they add up their standard operating procedures and 30-person teams and local narratives about meeting with every person that's in the goddamn city, whether it's an elected official, a bureaucrat, an appointed, an employee, or folks in the community, local businesses. I mean, you're building a story about why you deserve to win this license over the other 10 people that you're going to beat out. If you have 10 licenses available, you're getting 100 applicants. If you have 100 licenses available, you're getting 1,000 applicants. It's always 10x.
Wow.
And it is very competitive. So applications that I've written with good friends over the time, Chelsea and Emmett and Chloe and Katerina and all these great folks we've had at Denver Relief Consulting. We've gotten first scores in Nevada, Maryland, first or second, Nevada, Maryland, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Puerto Rico, Florida, and I think that's it. But
7.
nonetheless,
Wow.
and I've also applied in another 8 states, DC, and Canada as well.
So
And
how are you getting top scores in some states and then denied in others? Like you would think you would at least win.
as we got some first scores late in the game, but think about when I first started, say in Illinois, there were 158 applicants for 21 licenses. I bet 30 of them knew what the fuck they were doing. The rest of them were just like, there's no information in the public space. You
Did
can
you
go
know what the
search
fuck you were
online.
doing? Were you
What's
one of
that?
those 30?
Yeah. And I'm
Okay.
saying that everybody else, the 120, when they looked online for like cannabis growing standard operating procedures, there's nothing there. There was no book or information about how to run a commercial cannabis enterprise. And we had that with our work in other states. So we got to use our
Oh.
SOPs, our templates, all of this stuff. And now when you had like Missouri, for example, where we just won all three grow licenses that we applied for last summer, they had, I think it was 118 or something like it was a little over 100 licenses available to grow. And I believe they had like 3,000 applications or something like that.
Oof.
I mean, it's a ridiculous number. So
Damn.
in Illinois, they had 70 dispensary licenses available last winter. They had 7,000 applications.
Do you think what's taking so long for other states to adopt this is they're like, look, we don't want to write these procedures or these fucking applications. Let's wait for other states to do them. We'll take those and then amend them to our own. Do you think that's what's taken so long? And
I
then my
think most
follow
of
up
what
question, is eventually going to be, where are we today in the national scene with cannabis? That's eventually where we're going with this.
right now there are more than 30 states that allow medical cannabis, right?
Cool.
There are about a dozen that allow adult use cannabis.
Wow.
93% of Americans approve of medical cannabis. It's hovering around
Wow.
63%, almost two-thirds approve of adult use cannabis.
Okay, hold
When
on.
you look,
So sorry, because why? Why? If you're good with weed,
because
you're good with weed.
to my point earlier, everybody consumes cannabis. So if you don't, you definitely know a family member, a friend, a colleague who you respect a hell of a lot that consumes cannabis, right? There isn't the stigma associated with it when everybody was keeping it in the closet, right? When you look at the approval ratings, I think it was there's this documentary that didn't come out, but it was going to. It was like 15 to 54, and it was when the war on drugs started. It was like a 15% approval rating for cannabis across the country, and it was 54 during, I think it was Colorado's legalization or something like that. Not that many people more started consuming cannabis. More people just started admitting to consuming cannabis and being okay with it. And then other people felt okay saying that they were okay with cannabis. I'm serious, Brent. And I, yes, we know more, and some more people are consuming, but it's not that. It's not that. It was here, and cannabis has always been in support, but now there's like this broad support. It's not a bipartisan issue. Republicans and Democrats support this shit at the state and federal levels. It's great for the economy. It's great for jobs. It's great for patients. It's great for veterans. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win. You know, where it's being held up is in these archaic states like Alabama, Mississippi, Texas to an extent, that have a large lobbying and investment capacity in private prisons, in all of these reentry services, all of these things around incarcerating people for very simple things like drugs or mental health issues or homelessness or sex work. There's a
Sure.
lot of money being made in the private space because of that. And those just happen to be more good old boy states where maybe those business interests speak a little more loudly in the politicians' ears. So, nonetheless, because of the overwhelming support, I see us having a semblance of federal legalization in the next 18 to 24 months. And the reason
Whoa.
yeah, and I don't mean like the feds coming out and saying cannabis is legal and we're taking it off of Schedule One,
It's gonna
but
help
what
pay for this coronavirus debt we just put ourselves in.
it would certainly help, Brent, and that's no joke. But what I will say is you have this, I think, thing that's inevitable, and federal legalization is going to happen eventually. But before that, we're going to see what they did with hemp. And I don't know if you know, like 4 years ago, they legalized hemp.
Yep.
by putting it in the farm bill. Like they
Yep.
tucked it in the farm bill, and they said, okay, states, if you legalize and regulate hemp and make sure that there's no diversion, that kids aren't smoking this no THC weed, that cartels aren't involved, that all these things, that we're going to leave you alone, and we're going to give these businesses all the respect that they deserve and all of the amenities that a regular business has with regard to taxes and banking and things like that. That's what I see happening with cannabis, medical, and adult use here in the next 18 to 24 months.
24
It's that
months.
it's that supported. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
You're going to see weed at 7-Eleven in 15 years, Brent. Maybe 10.
With THC.
Yes,
Do
guarantee
you see them regulating the strength of the weed?
it. Not necessarily regulating, but making sure that the labeling is better. And I think the labeling is already pretty great. It's less about the labeling, it's more about the education, right? How do we know? How can we allow people to feel comfortable asking questions when something's illegal, right? Why are you curious about something that's illegal? Should I be concerned? Do you want to go whatever? Putting that into the open space, it's going to take some time to disseminate all this, best use practice to the standard consumer.
Sure.
But that's going to happen over the next 10 to 15 years. People are going to get it. They're going to be like, just like alcohol. Oh my God, no, that's a 13%, double barrel IPA. I can
Right.
only have those. I should not have a second. And it's going to be the fucking Joe Schmo down the street that's
Because
saying
it's
that.
the education of it, right?
But you
Now,
can't just do that by billboards in the internet. You have to have it in, family dinners and
right.
people out talking about it openly.
It's experience because you have to know how it affects you. Do you think that it'll be outlawed for us to grow our own? I
Well,
mean,
in
I know
Colorado,
homebrew is still a thing, but I'm just curious if you think they'll try to regulate that somehow.
it's a constitutional amendment that I, as an adult, have the right, 21 and older, to grow cannabis, 6 plants at my house under certain
Oh,
conditions. It's a constitutional amendment. There is no governor or legislative body that can take that away unless we take it back to the voters, right? We have the same thing for medical. So if I'm a medical patient and I'm an adult, I can grow 12 plants in my fucking house, and there's nothing that anybody can tell me about that. Now, I believe that California also has legalization around home grow, but I don't know that it's constitutionally protected. There are only a couple states like Colorado that actually have that constitutional protection. All the other ones have been done via ballot measure, that's non-constitutional, or legislative body. States like Illinois, you can't, if you wanted to legalize cannabis, you couldn't put a ballot initiative out as a citizen in Illinois like you can in Colorado or California. You can only go to the legislative body for the state and get that passed. So
and
every state's a little different.
interesting. So there's only a few that are constitutionally approved. Everything else is done through like what we're gonna look the other way type
No,
changes
it's just
or
no, it's just it's constitutional, which means that it's literally in the state's constitution that this is a right that I have as a citizen of Colorado, as a resident of Colorado, to grow cannabis in my home. It's a right. Just like I have a right to,
but in Illinois it's not your right.
in Illinois, it's not your right. Correct.
So
You have
what
a
approved
law
it?
that was passed by lawmakers, by their state house and senate, to pass a bill that they drafted, that they came up with, and that they all agreed on, with some input from constituents, but they ultimately passed. There is no human right or resident right in cannabis there. Granted, Illinois does have a pretty nice program around expungement and clearing criminal records, and around investing in communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. I'd say Illinois has done probably a better job than any state so far, at least in how it's been drafted and passed. We'll see if it gets implemented in a way that's impactful for these communities.
Interesting. Interesting. Hear about the wedding down of sex pot comedy. If we have time, we'll ask about sex pot comedy. If we have time. So the So you think in 24 months, federally, there will be some sort of legalization?
I do. Yeah. And I think you're going to see when that switch flips, all the states that were hesitant, it's just like some businesses have been hesitant. Even if a state legalizes, some municipalities are hesitant. I think once the feds come out and say, yeah, this is okay if you pass a law, every state is going to say, well, we better do this. If not, we're at a competitive disadvantage, right? If
Mm-hmm.
the state over from you is allowing cannabis, you're getting more tourism, you're getting more
Oh
tax
yeah. Oh
dollars,
yeah.
you've got more jobs, you've got your residents going and spending their dollars in that
In another
community.
state, right?
There's all sorts of reasons why these other more conservative states, I think, are going to catch up really quickly.
Is that what got you into politics? Was the cannabis world?
Cannabis was the door that opened up the broader picture, I think, to me, the broader landscape. And what I mean by that is it was very hard to be involved in cannabis policy and not see other drug policy and how it's impacted. Somebody gets busted for cannabis. Well, they've also got coke in them. I still know they're not a bad person. Well, they have meth on them. Well, they have heroin on them. They have, like, what I know these people, right? They're great. I'm one of those people, right? We're good people. Like,
Right.
why are we potentially going to jail, losing our jobs, losing our housing, losing our future, getting this life sentence that even if it's only 30 days in jail, it's on your record in perpetuity,
Forever. Yeah.
hinders your ability to get housing or a job. And then all of a sudden you start to look at, oh my God, that ties so much into workers' rights and wages and hiring laws around non-discrimination and housing and substance abuse and, oh my God, mental health. And the bubble, the intersecting nature of all these issues is very apparent once you start working in it. And it's next to impossible to be involved in drug policy reform and to really give a shit and to not also care about housing and to not also care about domestic violence and to not also, it opens yourself up. You open yourself up to so many more people that can really help you achieve what you're doing and supporting theirs along the way. Bringing these issues together, I think, is something we don't do enough in the society. We speak of these issues on islands, and they're not. Somebody's not homeless because whatever this person thinks. It could be because they lost a spouse, they lost their job. It could be that they got kicked out of their housing. Could be that they had a medical emergency and didn't have health care. Could be that the health care that they had didn't cover what the bills were. Like, it's a million reasons why people end up in that position. And you just start to see it, and I think you get so mad about learning about it and how people are actively working against progress on those issues. And it's hard not to want to get involved if you have any kind of heartbeat.
Right. Um, so is that so? Then that opened your eyes to the bigger picture, and then you ran for mayor. It seems like you like to dive headfirst into things you have no idea how to do.
No. Um, I ran for the record. I ran for city council 4 years prior in a very limited effort campaign. Right, we're talking 3 months before the election. Didn't spend very much money at all. Didn't raise any money.
How'd you
That was
do?
to learn the process. Because just like starting a business, running for office is not doing the thing that you're passionate about or talking about the thing that you're passionate
It's
about.
learning the
Running for
bullshit to make it
office
work. Right.
is administrative, right? It's setting up a campaign. It's getting the people around you. It's creating a schedule. It's knowing how you're going to message things, how you're going to respond to things. All these things you have to be at, managing your calendar, managing the stress and the fact that you're not giving anything else in your life the attention that it deserves, family and friends and other passions. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to go up and I'm going to stand for this and I got this. It is a
That's what
hard
it used to be.
job.
That's what it used to be,
Well,
right?
I think maybe a long time ago, but like even the people that are the showmen and the show women, the show people, um, they put in fucking effort, man. It is hard to be a fucking robot up there and be one of these politicians. That ain't fucking easy. And if you're actually a substantive robot, like that is fucking difficult and it takes a lot of work. And I quickly realized that in the city council race, but definitely much more in the mayor's race. And while also trying to run many of my businesses and getting asked to adopt these two young girls during the campaign, it all become incredibly overwhelming. And I don't think that that is ever a thing that I would go back to for the sole reason the hard work doesn't bother me. It's the fact that I can't be myself. I
Well,
can't talk like I do.
right,
Yeah.
right. Why aren't we okay? Why do you think we have a block in wanting to vote for people like you? Why are we trying to fucking vote for robots and vote for people that are just fixed in the box, like, as opposed to I want that real person? Everyone says they vote for the person they want to have a beer with most. Well, that's not a robot.
Here, here, here's my thought. I've got a lot of thoughts on this. This is a tough question for me because I've got a lot of personal experiences, but I've also got a lot of friends that have run for office. Some won, some lost. I don't think most people enter politics as robots, right? I think most people enter politics as really good fucking people. They care about their communities and want to do something better. They may not know what that is fully. They may have not flushed it out. They may not know what the fuck they're doing, but I believe they're good people with honest and good intentions. But there's something about that campaign process, and then definitely after you get elected, that changes you. And the pressure that you get to listen to everything and everybody, and to try to make concessions and to try to find compromise on everything, ultimately dilutes what you went into in the first place. I went into this in the first place for. The reason why people elected you has been diluted because you're trying to make everybody happy instead of continuing to really play it tough and probably not be as accomplished as you'd like by keeping down your path. And most politicians that I've seen are still great people, the ones that I know that ran, but they're different people. And I think
After they ran and won.
and won and got into that. And they're still doing good things. I like Candy Sedabaka in Denver here, and Julie Gonzalez at the state level, and Jonathan Singer at the state. Like there's a lot of fucking amazing politicians. That's not to say there isn't, but they're definitely not doing what they thought they would when they entered into that, right?
Because they have to play the game.
They have to, and they have to compromise.
And you didn't want to do that, and that's what bumped you out of it.
And they have to act like a politician. They can't be themselves anymore. And I started to see that erode. And I think I can be, at the end of the day, a hell of a lot more impactful in this community in a way that keeps me healthy and able to do it for a long time in the private space, right? I think I can influence things on housing and homelessness, and I think I have. I think I can influence things on entrepreneurship and business and how to drive local economy, and I think I have. I think I can do those things much more so in the private space by being myself, by saying and doing what I feel is most appropriate without repercussion, and to spending time with people that I think are most in line with that effort, and the best people that I can surround myself with to help me achieve that, because I'm a product of the people around me. And if I don't have good people around me, I'm not going to succeed. And I think I can do that best in the private space.
Do you think that's what pushed Dick Cheney to the private space?
I think a lot.
I just watched Vice, so he's on my mind.
I got to tell you, a lot of the scariest people in our world, Dick Cheney is one of them.
Yeah.
Bezos is probably another. Depending on who you are, Elon Musk, the son. I personally appreciate the guy and his efforts. You got to have a hint of evil to you. I mean, all genius has evil. It's hard to be that fucking smart.
Especially with Elon, he's got to be an alien or a robot.
We're all aliens or robots. You kidding me?
He's got to be.
We're all aliens, not yet robots.
Yeah, who are just trying to be robots. That's true.
Yeah.
So you would never run for office again?
No, I think never's a bit dramatic.
Sure, fair, but you don't have any desire to currently.
I don't. I mean, I
Did
think
it
if,
break you a bit?
oh yeah, man.
Did it kill a little bit of your faith in the system?
Oh, it killed a lot, not just in the system. I think I knew the system was broken. I just thought I could handle it better, to be honest. I think that it it wore me down. I wore myself down. It wasn't just that. Again, I was, working and doing all this other stuff on the side and creating a relationship with these girls that I adopted. There was a lot, and it hurt me, man. I was in 6 months after the campaign was broken. Like I hung by myself or with my partner at the time. And that was another kind of thing that just snowballed on this was she left me last summer after, being the only person that I really was engaging with after the campaign ended. It was tough. It took me a long while to figure out what I wanted to do and spend my time on, what was going to make me feel good, what was going to make me feel productive, and using, no matter. I can't pity party myself. I'm well off financially. I've got more things than I think most people want right now, and to not be happy, I think, is it's like a kick in the gut, And I wasn't happy. I'm happy now, but I wasn't happy back then at all. And a lot of that was looking at myself and saying, "You selfish piece of shit," like suck it up and start taking care of yourself and quit taking for granted this beautiful life that you have.
But you
But a
could.
lot of it was,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
and the last part, a lot of it was just me wanting to use my insane privilege that I've garnered over the years and these experiences that I've gone through and these things that I've learned to try to help others, to learn what I learned, to be
Yeah.
entrepreneurs and to fight for housing as a human right.
Hmm. I forgot what I was going to ask you because I listened to what you said.
You're also high as a kite, Brad.
I am. I am a little high. I've had a few bong rips for sure throughout this whole episode. Um. Oh,
You didn't
you.
even ask me
But
what I was drinking.
what is that? 11-year-old cognac?
No, it's a 11-year-old Santiago de Cuba. Some Cuban rum that I brought back.
Oh, rum, huh?
Yeah, I'm a Caribbean bastard.
You're getting into that Caribbean stuff. I don't want to get distracted real quick, and then we'll talk about that rum. My question is, you can't be the only person that felt that way going through politics. You can't be the only one that got into it and got. I feel like everyone got their shit pushed in when they went into politics. Um, what kind of psychosis do these people have to continue to do that?
It's tough, man. There is I think everybody should go see a therapist. I see a therapist once every other week. I think it's a good thing. Those people, if they're not, need to be seeing 3 times the therapist that I do, because you put on a fucking mask. Everybody does. There is not one person here in Denver politics, Colorado politics, that I haven't worked closely with that doesn't put on a fucking mask when they're doing their job. And I think that is the worst part of politics. I don't care how well intending they are. That
Right.
is, man, it's tough to be someone else and to be spending your waking life doing that, because these people aren't working 40-hour fucking work weeks. These are people that are passionate about the things that they're working on and ruining their lives over this fucking job and their minds in the process. It's insane.
And half of them aren't even doing good.
And I'm not even talking politicians. I'm talking campaign managers and people that run field games, ground games, people that run the data, people that run media and PR. Like you are not authentic,
So
and that
basically, what
is.
you're saying is you have no idea what would possess someone to do this.
I think it's a lot of people believe that that's their best way with their skill sets and talents to influence the conversation, to be a part of it. And I thank them for doing that. I really
And
do.
until they
Even
get
though I
corrupted.
agree with, because I know how fucking hard it is when you're in office. So even like, and I am not in any way advocating for defending Donald Trump on your fucking show. I'm gonna tell you that I got to tell you, there is not a more anxious man in this world than Donald Trump, and a lot of it is sitting in that position. And no matter who you are, you would say a lot of dumb shit too if you had to talk in
That's
front of
fair.
the
That's
general
fair.
public live as often as that idiot
We
does.
just wrote this speech 5 minutes ago. Here you go. Go knock it out of the park. Fuck.
I don't have trouble reading, but you know, it's fucking tough, and it is an insane amount of pressure, and it's amazing. I feel like you almost have to get hardened to the point that you don't pay attention to that, and that's part of the problem, right? Like as soon as you stop feeling things and caring, that's a problem. But you have to do that in politics to get your job done.
Why? Why? It's, I mean, you're right, but it still doesn't make. It still doesn't. I still. It's a product of the system that we've all pushed and instilled, and that's the problem. And it can't go back because we can't. It'll take just as long to go back as it did to get to where we are. And maybe all
Well,
this,
it would take longer unless we're just blowing everything up.
which
Yeah,
kind of seems like how the trend is.
yeah, but it'll just I mean never unless there's like a something unexpected, like let's say this virus was 100 times worse than it's
Mm-hmm.
going to end up being.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that could set in motion like a huge wave of change and the type of poverty and suffering and eventually anarchy that you need to see to make that change.
Right.
I just don't see that happening unless there's a major catastrophe.
Hmm.
If that's not going to happen, I got to tell you, I don't know if I want that. Like, do we want millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people to die? I don't know.
Nope.
To get to happen, is it worth it? I don't know. I don't think so. But if not, then we have to start looking at some parallel things, right? So if I can build a parallel housing model with others that makes more sense, if I can help build a parallel business structure with other people that makes more sense, and other people can see that as an example that works and adopt it as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the best we can do right now. Let's slowly move in a different direction.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can go that slow in like environment and stuff, but we got to start pushing in the other direction at some point. And this, both sides just screaming at each other and asking for polar opposites is not accomplishing a whole hell of a lot.
Right. Well, Kayvan, quite a life you've lived so far.
But can I ask you what's really on my mind right now?
Yeah.
So I'm wanting to get a printer for my house, and I'm wondering the one in the background right there. Do you like it? And if
It's
so,
fucking amazing.
yeah, what model is it?
It's the
I
best
trust
printer.
Contact.
It's the best printer for the money, I think. It is
Can
a.
you details?
What's up?
You want to shoot me the details on that? You can say it too.
No, I'll say it. It's
Like this and that.
It's an HP LaserJet 1102W, which is wireless, right? Here's the thing. Get something with toner. Get a LaserJet. The reason I say that, yes, it's only black and white. I'm fine with that. I don't need color.
Toner's a bitch, man.
What's up?
Toner's a bitch.
Oh, toner's great.
No, but it's a bitch to replace all the time.
Well, it's a big thing. It's a big unit. Hold on. It's a big unit for sure. But I will say that the thing I like about it, come on, it just pops right in and out. It's this big old fucking thing here. But the nice thing about this, and this is what I think people don't understand, because they get conned into buying. They get conned into buying LaserJet or inkjets, because inkjets do pictures and color and shit like that. But in Colorado, the inkheads dry out if you don't print like every day, or at least every other, and then you waste all that ink, and then you're just polluting the earth. And you know what, Kayvan? One thing I know about you, you don't pollute the earth. You're a
I
non-polluting.
think everybody pollutes the earth. Let's be fair.
Well, you don't pollute as much as everyone else. So LaserJet
I try
toner
not.
doesn't work like that, and so it just it lasts for fucking ever. In the 4 or 5 years I've owned that printer, I've replaced the toner one time,
Okay.
or the cartridge.
That I
I
like
mean.
to hear.
Yeah, it's
I like to hear.
it's the best ever.
Yeah, send me the deets on that when we're offline, please.
I will definitely do that. And then we've pretty much concluded our stream here. So if you are watching, thanks for watching live. I'd like to know. I have so many more questions that I want to ask you, but it's been a long stream, and I'd love to hear about your trip to Cuba. For sure. And my OBS system right now, my broadcasting system is just acting up, which is what happens when the stream gets long. It's like my system knows, okay, they're tired, let them go. But I want to know this rum you're drinking. You're getting into rum and M Ramos. Do you want to know that question for real? You put it in the chat and I'll ask. Tell me about this fucking rum you're drinking. Because rum is a beverage I cannot have anymore because I overdid it when I was in high school, and now just the smell of rum, like Captain Morgan's, just makes me kind of want to vomit.
I was not in a dissimilar place as you are right now. When I went down to Cuba, I was hesitant to try the rum. I'm a whiskey guy.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
a tequila.
I love tequila.
I'm a beer
My
guy.
God.
I'm a wine guy. I saw you drinking the wine there, my buddy.
Yes, sir.
But I went down there, and I got to tell you, you can't go to Cuba and not have rum, right? So we had that first little sip. It was by a lake. It was great. I was like, man, this is fucking delicious. This is like a really, really nice whiskey. And the more that I had it, I really got a taste for it again. And when I came back, I brought 5 bottles, and I've just slowly been sipping on it. My favorite was probably the Santiago de Cuba, but there was a Havana Club, I think it was a 12-year, that was pretty awesome. And they had a reserve that was great, but it just reminds me of really good whiskey. I think if you like really good whiskey, you could be into really good rum. And I got it, the rum history and about Bacardi moving out and about that recipe stand. Like that's what Santiago de Cuba is supposed to be. Like there's a whole lot of historical context to the rum trade down in Cuba with around colonization and the revolution. It's really fascinating, but that's for another time.
And you know about that, I assume.
A little bit, yeah.
Seems
I'm not
like
Cuban. I'm not Cuban. My ex-girlfriend is, though. She doesn't like me very much.
Oi.
I went down there.
Well, Kayvan, from our chat, someone would like to say thank you for your activism and for all the good work that you do in your life. So,
thanks to everybody around me, like you, Brent, who have been influences in my life for 15 years. Cheers.
Cheers to that, my friend. Absolutely. Cheers. I'm glad that you came on the show, and you have such a fascinating story, and I just wanted to share as much as I could with people, because I don't know a lot of people that have run for mayor, that openly smoke marijuana, that own pizza shops, that are trying to help their customers, that aren't just trying to fuck their employees to get money. You know what I mean? It seems like a good way to go, and so it's a pretty fascinating story. What do you have? So what are you doing now? Like, you don't have any vacation right now. You're just still working during the coronavirus, correct?
Yeah, I like to call myself retired, even though I'm working a full-time job, volunteering for a few organizations. I sit on the advisory board for the Center for Community Wealth Building.
Okay.
Which worker cooperatives and employee ownership. I sit on the board of the Colorado Village Collaborative, which builds the tiny homes and is continuing to work on that here in Colorado. I sit on the board of the Colorado Youth Symphony Orchestra, which I have for the last 7 years. Love that group. And I'm an advisor with Dance Safe, which does drug testing at concerts and festivals to make sure that people know the drugs that they're taking in the amounts that they are. Good Business Colorado, which is a coalition of independent small businesses in Colorado coming together to fight for the environment, community, and employee rights, as opposed to the Chamber of Commerce, which advocates for profit. A couple other groups.
Holy shit. How do you have time for all this?
And I'm playing dad, and And I'm adopting these girls officially now. I'm going through an adoption process now. That's pretty interesting. I was just looking at my list, and I just took up baking. We didn't even get to talk about my baking. I'm so upset.
We can do
All the
part
things
two.
that I've made. That's what I want to be known for more than anything now are my pies.
You're, dude, I'm telling you, this allergy-free stuff that my neighbor's making is fucking unbelievable. You have like once you try these B&Gs, these biscuits and graves, it's and knowing it's not that bad for you, bro, bruh,
I was
bruh.
going to come to LA early next month, but as soon as this is over, I'm going to come out, and I would love to try that.
Come on out. I'm sure I will be out in Colorado before you come out here because I got to go get my business restarted because I just got fucked by this coronavirus. So,
Can you throw? I'm sorry to hear that.
oh, it's all
Can
right.
but more importantly, can you throw some of those B&Gs in some dry ice
And send
and
them your way.
and transport them
I'm
to?
telling you, dude, she makes the fucking. It's so good. It really does blow your mind. Cause you'll take a bite and you're like, oh sure, it's fucking allergy free biscuits and gravy, and then you eat a bite and you're just like, when you smile so hard your eyes start to water. That's kind of what happened.
I like it.
Yeah.
I
So
like it. I
I'll
would love
send you
to
a
try
picture
it,
tomorrow.
and I hope I get to.
I hope you do too. Well, thank you for coming out. I have your Instagram right over there, and so if any ladies want to slide in his DMs.
Shut up.
That's how he dates. Have you been on a fucking FaceTime date yet?
No. Are those fun?
Yeah. They're
I
fun.
I could see how certain people would thrive in that. Yeah. I always get worried about.
Sorry. Oh, did I lose you at the last minute? Hilarious. Well, while he's coming in, just kidding. Thank you for tuning in to our past few live streams here. I appreciate it. It is crazy what Kayvan's done. You know what I mean? It really has. Um, it really has. Let me just change this over while he's all frozen. It really has done. He's done a lot of good good work for this community and for Colorado. He sponsored a lot of comedy early. He found that his marketing was way better. Instead of advertising in like Westward and magazines and stuff like that, he would advertise with local comedy, and the return on his investment was so much better because it's a real connection with real people that they know. So. It looks like he's used too much of his internet, so we will close it from here. You guys, thank you so much for coming out. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for sticking around the whole time, everyone, and tune in on. I won't be here tomorrow, Wednesday. Thursday, we're going to talk to. So that's Thursday, the 9th, April 9th. We're going to talk to Andrew Orvidal about, well, really the whole point of the conversation is we're going to talk about Dirtfish, which is a rally driving school that he attended maybe 2 years ago. I think up in Portland or Washington State, so somewhere like that, and it's a whole school on learning how to rally race and drive rally cars, and so we're gonna talk about that. I'd be dumb to not talk about his show on True TV called Those Who Can't that went for 3 full seasons, and that'll be on Thursday, the 9th of April at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then Friday. We're going to sit down with Sam Talent and talk to him about his days in a punk rock band up in upstate New York, and then talking about the new project he's doing and just did with Will Smith on Quibi. So keep in line with that. I'm putting all these out as podcasts as well. So if you prefer to listen to these, overhear them. Wait, that's same thing. It's been a long show. if you prefer to listen to these over watch them, I will be putting them out. We should be approved for Spotify shortly, but we're on every other stream and podcast service other than that as of right this moment. But all these episodes are not updated or uploaded yet. I only have one there. The rest are here on YouTube. So please, it's quarantine. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? Just come hang out with me. So I'll see you on Thursday, and I'll see you on Friday. And thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody. Let's hear Late Night Drive. Come on, baby, let the good time. What the fuck is this? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. See ya. Uh-huh. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next time.